There's a tornado right there. Guys, everybody go.
The wind started howling and you could hear the roar coming.
Looks like a 5,000-pound bomb hit the middle of town and blew up.
Holy get it started! Oh my God!
This is an emergency. You go to a safe place right now.
I knew the direction it was heading, and I knew my baby was in that path.
Oh my God! Oh!
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are first-hand accounts of a planet gone rogue. April 27th, 2011 was the worst day on record in Alabama. 62 tornadoes touched ground and 252 people died in less than 24 hours. James Spann spent most of that day on live TV, trying to save lives.
Get away from the door!
The most important part of my job is to provide adequate warning for storms that can kill people. And if we're not successful at that, we're not successful at anything.
At 5:40 a.m., James Spann joins his colleague, Jason Simpson, who's been on the air since 3:30 a.m.
I want to show you this from the graphic system. The Storm Prediction Center has placed Alabama in a high risk of severe weather today.
We all knew it was going to be bad. It's going to be one of the worst severe weather days that we'd ever seen.
We've got James Spann.
Thank you very much. When he walked in the door, for me, there was a feeling of comfort because I knew I wasn't going to keep fighting this fire alone.
In addition to radar and satellite data, Spann and Simpson rely on professional storm spotters to provide what they call ground truth.
We were one of several teams that worked for James Spann at his TV station. So our job is to find storms in northwest Alabama, and when they start happening, to give visual confirmation.
45 years in the weather business, and I've never seen a tornado, and somehow or other, I just had this knowledge that I was going to see one on this day.
Brian and Tim meet in the city of Jasper, an hour northwest of Birmingham, where Spann's TV station is located.
Around 2 p.m., we notice an odd-looking cloud approaching us.
Brian, is that a rain-free base over there, sir?
I was just trying to decide that.
I mean, this storm looks so weak on radar, it doesn't even seem possible.
Doesn't look like much at all. Lo and behold, it comes over us, and as it comes over us, we see that telltale sign, a rain-free base and a wall cloud, and in addition to that, the wall cloud is rotating.
I see rotation. I see rotation. Check it out, Brian.
Yep.
Rotation. We have rotation.
It takes a severe thunderstorm to make a tornado. If wind shear causes the mid-levels of a thunderstorm to rotate, a mesocyclone is formed. And if the rotating winds then descend to the ground, the result is a tornado.
Where's the cell phone?
Tim places a call to the National Weather Service and informs them of what we're seeing as storm spotters.
This is Tim Coleman. I am on Highway 78, just west of Jasper, and I'm watching a rotating wall cloud. That creature's coming right at us. I got to get back in the truck.
They immediately issued a tornado warning.
This is an urgent message. This is a tornado emergency for the city of Coleman.
Lauren Minot was aware of the tornado warning when she left her house and headed to work in downtown Coleman. But for Lauren and most people who've grown up in the area, tornadoes and tornado warnings are just a routine part of life in rural Alabama.
I had the radio on, but I wasn't really paying attention to the weather until it beeped really loud and said that there was a tornado in South Coleman County.
The National Weather Service in Huntsville has issued a tornado warning for extreme southeastern Madison County in north central Alabama, southwestern Jackson County in northeast Alabama.
I get just about in town, and you know, I'm looking around because they're still saying that there's a tornado. And finally I see it.
Our store best car.
Oh my God.
Better prices every day.
Holy crap. At this point, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. So I turn around thinking that I'm gonna have time to get out the way.
Friday, April 29th is the final day to shop the Willow Tree Hotel.
And it hits me. It sounds like someone is throwing rocks at my car. And at this point, I feel like I'm being lifted up because I had that weird feeling in my stomach, you know, like when you're riding a roller coaster.
The tornado scooped up the car and dropped it in a parking lot next to the road. Fortunately, Lauren escaped without injury, even though she ignored all the warnings.
In 2011, about 80% of all tornado warnings were false. A warning was issued, nothing happened at your house. And after repeated warnings like that, where nothing happens, it's cry wolf, the boy that cried wolf. And we know that people seek confirmation when they hear a warning. They believe it when they see it. They turned on the television and we had the live stream of the tornado. There it is.
And again, this is coming right through the middle of downtown Cullman. You can see the debris.
The live streaming images broadcast on TV left no doubt in Kim Cross's mind that this storm was dangerous and deadly. She's a journalist and longtime Alabama resident.
When we first saw Cullman on TV, you get this terrible feeling in the pit of your stomach. You think, my God, people could be dying. I'm watching on TV as people are dying. You know, I grew up with tornadoes. I remember being in first grade and having to do tornado turtle, where you get down in the hallway and put your, crawl up in a ball and you put your hands over your head and protect your head.
The tornado turtle is a leftover from a nuclear bomb awareness film dating back to the Cold War era. And the air raid sirens, many installed during World War II, are no match for the deafening roar of a tornado.
You might hear a siren on a calm day with no storm, but during a raging thunderstorm that is 65,000 feet tall, with a tornado and driving rain, in unbelievable thunder, you can't hear a siren. They're worthless. But if they see a tornado live on television, then they will do something.
The Cullman tornado was an EF4. EF stands for Enhanced Fujita, a scale which classifies tornadoes from 0 to 5 depending on the wind speeds and the damage they inflict. The Cullman EF4 stayed on the ground for more than 65 kilometers, and close on its heels, an EF5 tornado slammed into the city of Hackleburg.
So if you have family that live in Lawrence County, up around Moulton and Hatton, call them now. Let them know that there's a large, violent tornado on the ground moving across Lawrence County.
After it flattened a Wrangler jeans factory, the EF5 continued northeast, headed straight towards Carrie Kirby and her family and friends.
The last thing they said on TV before we lost power was it just hit Phil Campbell. It's headed towards Mount Hope. If you're in the path of Mount Hope, get out. So we got in the truck and came down here and got in. And it was bad.
It was bad.
Carrie's neighbor, Billy Little, is a chicken farmer. Just a few hours before the twister hit, Billy saw Carrie and her husband Hal in town and invited them to ride out the storm in his cinder block shelter.
You know, it was real black back in there. You know, it's just a black cloud. But yet I was looking back in there over in woods, and the tornado was drawing that energy, and it was clouds. I mean, big clouds just rushing towards it. You know, it looked like it was doing 200-300 miles an hour. You could see a wall of rain and stuff moving
I saw
that way.
Black and gray mist looking that it was rolling in front of that wall.
Hail the size of golf balls started dropping from the sky, the telltale sign of the cold front that fueled the twister.
Then me and Billy were looking at the balls of ice, and one hit you on the hand, didn't it? It hit me on the hand, and my son, he was running, and one hit him on the head before he could get in there.
and then I could see gray smoke just rolling towards us. And that scared me to death when I saw that. So I got back in the shelter and sat down, and I was silently praying they would hurry up and get in the shelter and close that door.
Hey, it's coming right over us.
Yeah, I ain't never seen nothing like this. Hey, look at that, boy. It's getting dark.
Look here, Lord, have mercy.
I ain't never seen nothing like this.
When they got the door shut, it didn't last but 30 seconds of quiet before we could start hearing the tornado coming, and it sounded like a jet airplane to me.
That train.
Yeah. And it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And then we could start seeing mud and pieces of leaves and trash being thrown up under the door into the shelter with us.
The tornado does not let up, and there's not much to do but hunker down and pray. One of the deadliest super outbreaks in the history of the United States has unleashed a rash of violent tornadoes on the towns and farmlands of Alabama. For the unlucky victims, it seems as if the entire planet has suddenly gone rogue.
Holy crap!
Carrie and her friends find shelter in a bunker to escape an EF5 tornado headed straight for them.
I just was hoping that the roof would stay on and the door would stay shut.
Timmy, it's out on top of us.
Don't open the door yet, please! Don't open the door yet, please!
When the terrifying sound of 320 km/h winds and flying debris finally subside, some of the men try to exit the shelter.
Power lines are blown over the door here.
Well, over our door right here.
Open that door. We stuck.
They're alive and well, but there's no telling what devastation lies beyond that door, or how long they'll be stuck inside. Finished with Mount Hope, the violent long-track EF5 tornado plowed through several more rural towns, leaving behind a wake of destruction over 210 kilometers long, with 72 people dead. But there was more to come, as storm spotters Brian Peters and Tim Coleman would soon discover.
Doppler radar showed this tornado moving northeast at 55 miles per hour.
We hear the emergency broadcast system, that sound that is so unmistakable. It starts listing off times, and it tells us this large tornado will be in Cordova at 4:55 p.m.
The tornado will be near Jasper and Cordova around 4:55 p.m. Central Daylight Time.
Tim's radar application shows two massive thunderstorms, both capable of producing tornadoes. But radar doesn't tell the whole story.
A lot of people think the radar beam just magically hugs the surface of the Earth. It doesn't work that way. Radar goes in a straight line. The Earth curves. So as you get a distance from the radar site, the beam is higher and higher and higher. So in some cases, at a distance from that radar site, your beam might be 5,000 feet off the ground. So we know there's violent circulation 5,000 feet off the ground. We don't know if it's at the surface. And the only way we know that, it's trained spotters.
Tim and Brian are both professional meteorologists. They've studied enough tornadoes to know that what makes them so dangerous is their unpredictability. They know that without warning, a tornado can change direction, turn back on you, or appear when you least expect it. That's why a trained storm spotter never stops evaluating and reevaluating the risk.
We decided, well, let's go for it. And if it becomes too dangerous, we'll stop. So we began to head south. All right, this will take us straight down to the interstate. We're going to try to intercept a massive supercell with a dangerous tornado that's currently in Pickens County. We get on Interstate 22 around 4:20 p.m. We know the tornado is back there. We cannot see it because we are in extremely heavy rain. At this point, we realize we can catch this tornado, but we're going to have to drive through the northeast edge of the storm right out in front of the tornado, get south of it so we can see it. So it's a very risky maneuver.
But we're driving into the core now. I don't even think we can do much more.
Just heavy rain.
Given the fact that we now are going to cross directly in the path of the likely tornado, I'm becoming apprehensive about continuing on this journey.
I mean, I don't know, Brian. I just don't want to die. You know? I don't want to die either. We can do it.
The rain starts letting up and we're seeing a little bit of brighter sky ahead. We knew that when you start getting into that bright area, that's where the tornado is going to be. We're going at speeds close to 90 miles per hour. A few hailstones start hitting the car.
Oh, damn. I hear hail.
Oh! We counted at least 9 bangs as large hail begins to hit my vehicle. They were at least golf ball size.
So we want to get under the overpass. We're getting hail.
Oh, I mean, we're directly in the path of the tornado now.
Brian then starts asking me, should we stop? And I said, no, we cannot stop here. We are directly in the path of the tornado. If we stop here now, we will die.
Just haul ass.
You got a good view coming up right here.
There's the tornado. Okay.
Oh my God, it's there.
I see it. Just keep back, keep driving. Drive. Just keep driving, man, because it's coming at us. Where's my phone? Let me have my phone. Drive.
My first thought was, I need to call James Spann at ABC 3340.
This is Brian Peters. Can you patch me through to James?
My second thought was, it's happening. After 45 years in the field of meteorology, I'm finally seeing a real tornado.
I'm on I-22 and we've got the tornado in sight.
There it is, Brian. My voice goes up an octave. There it is, Brian. So at that point, we stop.
I'm stopping on the interstate to give James a play-by-play of what we can see from our vantage
We can't
point.
stay here long.
I know it.
Multiple vortex tornado.
And there it is. Not a wall cloud, not a rain-free base, a full-fledged tornado.
We got Brian Peters on the line with us. Brian, you're seeing a tornado right now. Tell us what you've got.
Yes, James, we're about a mile from Cordova, exit 72. But I want to tell you right now, it's actually coming in our direction. So we're not going to be able to stay here very long.
Hey, Brian, you get out of there. I mean, if you got to hang up, you go. But have you noticed any debris falling out of the sky?
There's definitely debris now, James. I can see there's a debris cloud near the bottom.
At that point, we've done our job. We have visually identified it, given that information, so then James Spann, the National Weather Service, and be able to tell people, this is not just on radar. This is verified on the ground by 2 professional meteorologists.
While James Spann tracks the Cordova tornado, a second team of storm spotters flags another twister.
John Oldshoe also has a tornado on his live stream.
All right, goodness gracious. That is a large wedge tornado.
2 storm spotter teams are now each tracking 2 separate EF4 tornadoes on live TV.
It was the moment when we could see the lowering behind the trees that we knew what was coming to Tuscaloosa.
We are now calling a tornado emergency for Tuscaloosa and Northport. It's way, way, way too close.
On April 27, 2011, one of the worst tornado outbreaks in U.S. history is barreling through the state of Alabama and has already claimed dozens of lives.
Get away from the door!
The magnitude of this super outbreak has caught everyone by surprise. So far, 43 tornadoes have struck.
There's the tornadoes. Keep back, keep driving. It's out on top of us.
Don't open the door yet. Please don't open the door yet.
Meteorologists James Spann and Jason Simpson scrambled to get the word out and to save lives. They tracked an EF4 that devastated the small town of Cordova, population 2,100. Now they're streaming live video of another EF4 approaching the city of Tuscaloosa, population 90,000.
So John Oldshoe has a large wedge tornado. I believe John's on Interstate 59. Is that right, Jason?
He's at Knoxville looking up at this thing as it's coming up toward Highway 11.
For the first time today, James Spann and his teams of storm spotters are ahead of the game. They report on a tornado touchdown 50 kilometers outside of the Tuscaloosa city limits.
My job was not to make it the best shot in the world, My job was to get in front of the storm that was going to produce the tornado and get video live back to James.
It just got black and black, more black. I mean, it was just the perfect wedge-shaped tornado.
It doesn't matter what you say when there's a tornado coming through a city. It's too late. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you said 40 minutes ago. And in this case, I don't have to say anything because of John and Ben's live stream. There it is. This is an emergency. You go to a safe place right now.
With a population of over 90,000, about a third of whom are students, Tuscaloosa is one of the biggest cities in the state. Alabama University graduate and journalist Kim Cross has lived here for most of her career.
Alabama is what I always imagined a college would look like. The campus is beautiful. It's around a big green quad, and it's a huge school, and there are apartments and little cottages and rental homes, and a lot of students will get, 3 or 4 roommates and get a rental house. That's what we did. Football is really, really a big deal. On game days, you will see the quad blanketed with tents and carpets and flat screen TVs and lazy boys. I mean, they take it to a new level with the tailgating.
But today is not that kind of day. A large EF4 tornado is fast approaching the heavily populated college town.
Let's look at the Tuscaloosa sky cam. Jason is working that.
While Spann tries to convince his audience to take shelter, 2 young daredevils, Ryan Chandler and Nate Huguet, have ideas of their own.
I'd always wanted to chase a storm, so I posted a tweet about who wants to chase a storm with me. My friend Nate said I'm in.
Nobody should be driving. Everybody down there listening to me on radio in Tuscaloosa, stop now at the next exit, the next convenience store that will let you in.
At this point, it's still lighthearted and fun, and we're making jokes. As we get on 359, we start to be able to see the tornado.
If you know anybody that maybe doesn't have electricity and cannot watch us or listen to us, make a call. That thing's huge. The camera, for those of you that are watching maybe for the first time, this is on top of the Tuscaloosa County Courthouse.
We're looking back up a little bit so that it's not so shaky, but look at that.
Right, and this thing is still southwest of downtown Tuscaloosa. Moving north.
That's southwest of downtown Tuscaloosa. There it is. You can see debris in the air.
Look at the debris. Look at the debris in that. Goodness gracious. This will be a day that will go down in state history, and all you can do is pray for those people.
The twister has been on the ground for close to half an hour.
There's a tornado right there. Guys, everybody go.
Wreaking havoc through the city suburbs.
It is right in there.
With smartphones and digital cameras, awestruck residents capture images of the tornado as it marches past.
Oh my God.
Towards the heart of downtown Tuscaloosa at McFarland and 15th Street.
Go. This is a large, violent tornado coming up on downtown Tuscaloosa. Be in a safe place right now. So now we're starting to see the flashes.
There it freaking is. Oh my God. Okay, speed up.
It's out the passenger window, so of course Nate's filming and looking at it, and it's not until it's right on top of us that I actually get my first view of it.
Go, Chandler. Never in my life will I see this again.
I turn the car around so that I have the opportunity to see the storm out the front windshield.
Chandler, do not go back that way. Nate, film it. I am.
And it's right there in front of us.
There's 2 of them. We need to go that way. No, Chandler, go back.
We're fine.
Chandler, go the back. I'm not kidding.
This being my first opportunity to see the storm, I'm kind of like a moth to light at that point. I'm just gonna sit there, and he yelled at me and told me to go back. So we put the car in reverse on the wrong side of the interstate.
It's crossing the interstate right where we were. Oh my God. You can see huge debris. Oh my God. That thing is destroying everything.
If you have a child on the campus of the University of Alabama, call them and tell them now to go into a safe place. Let's pan over to the left.
Oh, my
Let's take
goodness.
it full.
Look at that.
Are you kidding me?
Look at all the stuff flying around up there.
That's coming over near Interstate 359 in Skyland. Nobody should be out there. This is an extremely violent situation.
I had turned the TV on in Elmore County, and I knew where that storm was. I knew the direction it was heading, and I knew my baby was in that path.
I've got my mom, my brother, my sister, my family, my wife, my 2 boys, all living there, and now I'm not home to protect them.
Students living off campus in ground floor apartments take shelter in bathrooms where pipes in the walls and bathtubs offer protection.
Get back there!
Oh my God!
Holy, look at it, dude! Oh, get inside it! It's fucking massive!
He texted me at 5:12 and he told me, he said, this thing is huge, I'm fine. And I texted him back and I said, so y'all are okay?
Oh, it's right outside. Oh my God!
The phone cut off at 5:13. I knew in that second she was gone.
Moments later, the tornado comes knocking at Will Caruso's door. Incredibly, like so many others, he has the presence of mind to keep recording with his smartphone.
It is exactly 5:14. The tornado's passing over us. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I love you guys. I love you guys. Holy holy Lewis, hey! Lewis, got my goal! I got it!
We were all holding on to each other. I was holding on to 2 dogs and trying to pry myself between 2 walls and just doing whatever I could just not to get sucked up.
Oh, God. Windows are going out! The water's coming down. The water's coming down.
A large tree behind the house fell on top of the roof, and beams from the attic and insulation and drywall came pouring down on top of us.
Oh, God.
The wind is tearing his house apart, but Will's smartphone is still recording.
Something fell on your roof, man. Still pretty windy out there, but... Oh, my God. Look at it. Oh, my God. Look at it.
After it passed, the backside of the house was just demolished, just crushed. All the windows are blown in, glass and drywall.
Tornado just passed over the house. The house is destroyed. Oh my God, everything is gone. There's got to be people trapped in there. We got to check on them.
The tornado's fury lasted only 15 to 20 seconds, but the damage it caused was apocalyptic, and it's not over yet. It's still on the ground, on a path towards its next victims.
We're going to get hit by a tornado.
On April 27, 2011, the state of Alabama is under siege.
Oh my God!
That thing is destroying everything.
The super outbreak's latest tornado barreled through downtown Tuscaloosa. Now it's headed toward the nearby town of Holt, Alabama. Vietnam veteran and environmentalist John Wathan knows this storm is the real deal.
Here it is, boys and girls.
Our weatherman, James Spann, is normally cool, calm, collected. Nothing rattles this guy.
But I don't want to be so specific. I want everybody in the city limits of Tuscaloosa to stay sheltered.
I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before.
The urgency now is for those of you out here in the eastern side of town, over here toward Cottondale and Holt and Alberta City.
People can read me. I've been here since the Civil War. I'm old as dirt. I've been on television forever. They can read my body language. They can read my voice inflection. And they could see a change when I saw that live stream.
After hearing the edge in James Spann's voice, I took my camera bags, my guitar. I went up there to the storm room that I'd built and put everything inside, started getting the family inside.
Look at the fall coming up out of the valleys. This is spooky.
The creek was evaporating. The barometric pressure was dropping so fast that it was actually pulling moisture out of the creek.
Inside the vortex of a tornado, a vacuum effect occurs. At times when the atmospheric pressure drops and the updrafts are strong enough, it can suck up water from a river into the tornado's funnel. This phenomenon was captured by a weather camera in Springfield, Massachusetts in 2015.
Then it got dark outside, The wind went completely calm, but then it started howling, and you could hear the roar coming. Get down! Get down! It dawned on me that, yeah, this was coming straight at me, and I needed to be underground. That's where I cut it off and ran underground. That's a dumpster in the air right there. When I looked up over the camera and saw that, it's when this is not a viewfinder, this is real. We're in the storm room. Listen. I got one bolt locked on the door when it started rattling.
There goes the house.
At one point, we could hear what I thought was the house leaving, but it was actually my neighbor's trailer. It picked his trailer up and slammed it up against the house and just demolished it.
I feel my ears popping.
The barometric pressure went so low that our ears were popping worse than any airplane ride I'd ever been on.
I smell trees. All right, I think it's gone.
Oh, crap!
Oh, my God!
See, that's right out this window here.
My brother Johnny's lost every damn thing. We got roof damage. Oh, my truck! Oh, God almighty!
Have you seen this lately?
No. No. Sorry. It was gone, man.
Oh, my God.
We were bloody lucky. That house was built right after Hurricane Katrina to withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds. I built it.
My God, this son of a bitch. Oh, my God! Oh, my God!
I don't like to watch these.
Oh, my God!
The tornado shows no sign of letting up. It's growing in size and power and becoming more dangerous by the minute.
Holy
freaking huge, man.
This is the storm right here that produced all of the damage in Tuscaloosa County coming up toward Birmingham. And again, it is a clear call to action. There it is right there.
This is going to turn out to be one of the biggest tornadoes that ever hit Alabama, I think.
The tornado is almost 2 kilometers wide. It's headed straight for Birmingham, the largest city in the state, and home to journalist Kim Cross.
When the Tuscaloosa tornado was coming toward Birmingham, it looked like it was on track to hit our house.
We have a large, violent tornado. There's no if, it's a matter of where and when.
After we saw that, our power flickered and died. And when that happens, not only do you lose TV, you lose your lights, you lose all of the whirring, clicking things that happen in a house, and it gets dead quiet. I follow James Spann's Twitter feed, and he tweeted a link to the live stream coverage, so we were able to watch TV on our phones. And at some point, he calls out our neighborhood.
And again, this thing is awfully close to Bessemer, Hueytown, Fairfield. If I've called out your neighborhood, you should be in a safe place.
That's when you think we could die in a few minutes.
Luckily, the EF4 never made it into the center of Birmingham. It changed course, missed the downtown area, and then headed straight to the suburbs.
We came out after the warning expired, and we looked around. There was not a leaf disturbed in our neighborhood, and we thought, well, was that it? And 7 miles away, Pleasant Grove was devastated.
Tornadoes are the Russian roulette of storms. No one can predict when or where they'll strike. And while Kim Cross and her family don't suffer damage or harm, not everyone was so lucky. On April 27, 2011, a record-breaking number of destructive long-track tornadoes strike Alabama. The storm is on a rampage, destroying several $1 billion of property and taking scores of lives. Since the early hours of the morning, meteorologists James Spann and Jason Simpson have been on the air trying to save lives.
The sole reason we're here is to provide lead time for people to go to a safe place of a storm that can kill you. In the case of April 27th, it didn't stop for hours and hours and hours and hours. It was like bullets from hell.
We've got to get through this event so we don't have any more loss of life.
It's now late afternoon, and as the sun lowers on the horizon, the heat that helped fuel the twisters finally begins to dissipate in some parts of the state. And Span's TV station begins to broadcast damage reports. Storm spotters John Oldshoe and Ben Greer have made it back to Tuscaloosa, their hometown.
It's an obstacle course of overturned cars, upside down trucks, and overturned 18-wheelers. I am finally relieved to get a text from my wife. She says they are fine, don't worry about it.
I look to see all this devastation. John starts sending a live feedback to Span for the first coverage of Tuscaloosa of the damage that's done.
So that is a live stream coming from John Oldshoe. John is on the scene of that severe damage down in Tuscaloosa.
He tells me, Ben, hop on outside, start taking pictures now. I get out and I realize that about 600 yards from me is where my sister's house used to be. There's nothing there. I pick up my phone and I text my mother. Within 10 seconds, I get a reply, she's fine. She's on her way here.
Just a few blocks away, amateur storm chasers Ryan Chandler and Nate Huguet try to get back home to their families.
I can't even recognize this place.
We see the damage, we see the houses, but what's actually happened a mile down the road, you have no idea.
Light poles down in the road. This thing can't focus quick enough.
So as we pull up behind the storm, a woman comes running up to the vehicle and we tell her to get in.
Come on. Get in, get in. Come on.
Oh my God, my dog.
Are you okay? Hey, are people okay?
I don't know, I can't. Oh my God, my dog dead. Oh my God. Keep on.
Nate, we gotta, like there's tons of people out there. I know.
Oh my God.
So at that point, we get out and start digging people out of their houses.
For those living beyond the city limits, finding loved ones is not always easy. The storm knocked down power lines, destroyed relay stations, and communication towers.
We kept calling and couldn't get a response, you know, and that wasn't like him not to answer his phone.
I called many times the hospital, the student health center, Ferguson Center, all of the places that they were telling online and on the news for you to call to locate your student.
So that's when we got in the car and drove to Tuscaloosa.
Pratt City, a bedroom community of Birmingham, has also been hit. That's where Alter lives, but he was lucky. He was at work when the tornado slammed into his neighborhood.
I got a call from a female friend. She says that the storm was in the area. Then I got another call from another one of my neighbors. He was like, you might want to try to get home. I said, man, it's looking like a third world country over here.
Alter's good friend, filmmaker Tig Knight, filmed as they surveyed the damage.
Power lines down, debris everywhere.
Devastation.
Yeah, people just everywhere. Siding thrown everywhere, everything was in the yard. A neighbor's house, I could see directly into his kitchen. And walk in the house and I could just look up and I could see the sky just like I can see it right now. It was almost like it just had a sunroof. The top half portion, the roof was completely gone.
Everything was in disarray and it was devastating. And like I said, knowing where different things were placed and located, and now it's just completely gone. It was your bedroom.
It really didn't sink in until you just had time to sit down and think about it.
Probably felt good that you wasn't home.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I was at home, I was going to either be in one or two places. It was going to be one in my bedroom or two downstairs in the basement. And my bedroom, two of the walls that face outside were actually gone. So, you know, it could have just came, couldn't be here today, so, you know.
What's going through your mind like right now?
I don't know. Rebuild or move?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question right there. Major question.
To stay and rebuild, or leave and begin a new life somewhere else, perhaps even in a safer place? That was the question on a lot of people's minds that day. An unprecedented tornado outbreak strikes the southern United States on April 27, 2011. The hardest hit are the residents of Alabama, where over 50 tornadoes have touched down so far and wreaked havoc. Carrie Kirby and her husband Hal found shelter in Billy Little's bunker, but now they're stuck.
Power lines have flowed over the door here. Over our door right here? Over that door. We stuck.
So 3 or 4 of them put their shoulders up against the door and shoved until they got a big enough crack that Hal could stick his head out the door. Billy said, "What do you see, Hal?" And he looked around and he said, "Nothing, Billy. I don't see anything. It's all gone." They all got the telephone pole off the door and we came out and there were just piles of debris everywhere, metal twisted everywhere. We looked over there and the black and white horse that had been in this field right behind us was sticking out the top of one of the chicken houses that was laying on the ground, and he was flailing his head around. And I just couldn't look at that anymore, so we went over towards Billy and Nancy's house to look at what was left over there. His house had been stone, rock, brick, and the walls inside were tongue and groove walls, and there was nothing left that you could recognize in that pile of debris except a rock fireplace sticking up in the middle of it. There wasn't really an option to pick up and move. You just take one day at a time and dig in and build it back.
Further south, the Stevens drive to Tuscaloosa to search for their son William, who has not reached out to them in over 3 hours.
It looked like somebody had come in and dropped a bomb on the place, because you could not drive down McFarland Boulevard.
Will had decided to ride out the storm with a childhood friend, Danielle Downs, and her roommate, Lauren Brown.
The house was surrounded by a lot of trees, and it took the trees down, and one come down and just took the whole house, just centered the house. When they found him, he had one under one arm, one under the other. He was on top of both of them.
Yeah, he was laying over top of them, and they was holding hands. And Lauren's
nails had broken off into his hand.
Yeah, had broken off into his
She
hand.
had squeezed his hand so tight that her fingernails broke off in his hand.
Lauren's mother, Ashley Mims, found her daughter in a hospital morgue.
She had pieces of debris in her hair, a broken Xbox game, dirt and stuff like that, grass, leaves, mixed in her curly hair. And she was just asleep, is what it looked like.
In all, the death toll was 252, a number that haunts James Spann to this day.
That number will be etched in my mind until the day I die, because that's the death toll. That's the only number I'm focused on. History's going to judge what I did on the Green Wall, but the number of people that died lets me know that there was a lot of things we didn't do right. And yet at the same time, a lot of people that lived, there were some things we did right.
I believe, like he does, that what we do is a service. We want to serve the communities that we love. So when we looked at each other about 11 o'clock that night, when the final tornado warning had ended and we signed off the air, there was nothing to say. There was just a heaviness, there was grief, there was sadness, because this was our state.
Many records were broken that day. The frequency of the tornadoes, the distance they traveled, and their wind speeds. And while much about tornadoes remains a mystery, modern research can increase warning lead times using computer models and ground observations. Because as global temperatures continue to rise, it's likely that the frequency of super outbreaks will also continue to rise. And meteorologists like James Spann can do little more than prepare for the next catastrophe and find new ways to save more lives.
Often in the weather enterprise, we're very guilty of being narcissistic, and we thump our chest, we talk about we saved lives and we're so good. Well, we didn't save 252 in my state that day. I won't accept that, and I'm very driven to find out what went wrong. Let's get in there and fix it. The physical science was excellent. The social science, behavioral science, we have to learn.
Reeves. Reeves, come on. Reba.
I looked out the window, and there I saw this massive wall of flame.
Holy this is crazy.
We're fighting a beast. It was a living, breathing, eating machine.
We had 860,000 liters of fuel.
Where are you?
Right now, I'm escorting fuel through a burning hell.
I'm getting phone calls from parents. Where are you? Do you have my child?
It's monstrous. It does whatever it wants to do. It will eat anything in its path.
Holy look at that!
Oh my God, it's gonna burn down!
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are first-hand accounts of a planet gone rogue. One of the worst natural disasters in Canadian history struck on May 3rd, 2016, when a wildfire ripped through the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta. The fire became known as the Beast and forced 88,000 people out of their homes, scrambling for their lives.
Might have been the last time I ever saw my house right there. Holy!
Fire Chief Darby Allen led the city's efforts to battle the blaze.
At times, it was 500 or 600 feet in the air, taking up all your eyesight. So as far as you could see left and right, and in the air, it was flame. And for those people that were on the ground fighting that fire, overwhelming.
Just down the road from where I live.
On Monday morning, Fort McMurray resident Jason Louvel films the season's first fires from his rooftop.
It's fire number 2. There's fire number 1. A few water bombers in there now. That's a bad one over there, folks. We could see the smoke, so that's why we went in and see what was happening. You okay back there, puppy? Hey, say hi. Yeah. Well, there's off-road trails throughout. You can just take the trails, and they do end up leading to where the fires were. Well, there it is. Another big forest fire for Fort Mac.
The wildfire west of Fort McMurray grew overnight, but it has been kept in check and away from town by overnight dozer work and ground firefighting efforts.
Super dry. It's 30 degrees again today. Wind changes direction. It's going to come into town and we're going to have to evacuate.
You know, I'm informed it was the driest conditions for 50 years. We'd had consistent high temperatures, no humidity. It's prime for any type of ignition source for that forest in some way or another to get going.
Fort McMurray is surrounded by the northern boreal forest, which spans from Alaska to Newfoundland. And the heart of Canada's oil production sits 100 kilometers north of the city. It's the Athabasca oil sands, where over 1 million barrels of heavy crude oil are pumped out of the ground every day. So when the first fires start just a few kilometers from the city, water bombers and helicopters are quickly dispatched by Alberta Forestry.
I don't think they want us here anymore. Because they're blocking the road.
I think we just got in trouble for coming and watching the fire. The helicopters landing.
Yep.
Jason and his friends are told to clear the road so ground crews can pave the way for an air attack. This early on, a lot hinges on how fast and how hard these units can strike.
There they go.
Sweet!
Well, the lady said they're going to be bombing here very shortly. We should be getting out of here.
I'm concerned. I know how dry it is. We also know how quick this thing is moving. And I'm concerned, although the reports are it's going to pass us by, the wind is continually changing. So although the wind is currently taking it down and away, if that wind changes, we're in trouble.
6:30 at night on my way to night shift. There's a huge plume of smoke coming up just over the hill. Ash everywhere on the ground.
Chris Burrows and Gina Bourdois have lived here for a decade. They've seen their share of wildfires, but this one is different.
So, in a sense, we were sort of jaded because, yeah, we'd been living in a forest fire area and a forest fire zone, but it never got that close. Hope we make it through tonight. A little more fire starting.
So at the end of the day, on the 2nd, we were in a comfortable position enough. There was no imminent threat at that time. But although we were hopeful, I was concerned that we were going to have some trouble on the 3rd.
When dusk comes, firefighting crews are pulled back to safety. And Dale Benfeld gets ready for a long night.
And that's what I did all Monday night, was monitor the situation with the staff that I had in the regional operations center. And really, that's the calm before the storm. At night, with the way the ground is out there, there's a number of valleys, there's a number of gullies. It can go in any direction, but you don't know where it is because you don't have a visual on it. Anything could happen.
The following morning, residents wake up to a crisp blue sky and everything seems to be under control.
It's a beautiful day. There's very little smoke in the air. People are phoning me, we're fine, everything's wonderful. I remember giving a press conference that morning saying, you know what, let's not really count our chickens. That fire's sitting there and it's just resting up and it's gonna come back. People think it's fine and it's all gone away and it's nice to have that thought, but I just want people to bear in mind and don't get into a false sense of security. We're in for a rough day.
What Chief Allen fears is an inversion. At night, the cool air keeps a lid on the fire and smoke below. So even though a fire might still be going, no smoke can be seen. But as the morning sun heats up the atmosphere, the cold air mass lifts and the fire emerges.
Oh dear. It's getting bad again. All the fires have worked on, all restarted.
Fluid situation in downtown Fort McMurray. The winds have shifted, so we have some announcements. This is a 30-minute alert to potential evacuation. Be ready, have your bag packed, be ready to leave when the announcement comes.
Oh boy.
The winds pick up and push the fire towards the southern edge of the city, in the direction of the Abasand, Grayling Terrace, and Beacon Hill neighborhoods.
So we're live here in Fort McMurray in the community of Beacon Hill. This is one community under voluntary evacuation. And I'll tell you, basically noon came and it went from kind of smoky and then in a matter of 20 minutes or so, you know, it just went black.
There's no more waiting around. We're evacuating. We wrote out a very quick evacuation order. And away it went.
Mandatory evacuation update, okay? Residents of Abasand, Grayling Terrace, Beacon Hill are now under a mandatory evacuation order.
Mandatory evac. They want us out of here. People are panicking, there's accidents everywhere. It doesn't seem like we're going to be getting out of here. It was just me and my missus here and the animals, so we just picked up what we could here and tried to get out of town.
Gina is at work when she hears the evacuation order.
I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like Chris is at home right now. I need to call him. Called him, no answer. Of course he's sleeping because he has to work that night.
I was sound asleep. I had earplugs in from working the night before.
I ended up calling my neighbor, and my neighbor said, okay, I'm not home right now, but I'll get my boyfriend to go knock on the door.
And as I woke up, I could feel the house shaking because of the slamming going on in the door. And I looked out the window, and there I saw this massive wall of flame.
With minutes to spare, Chris gets out of his house and jumps into his neighbor's truck.
There was cars everywhere, so somebody had actually backed their truck up, smashed the gate going into a running trail into the forest, and we went through the woods down a running trail instead of getting stuck on the street.
As news of the evacuation sweeps through the city's neighborhoods, gridlock brings traffic to a standstill.
Here's old Avocen, it's gonna burn down. She's pretty bad, boys. Burning up pretty good.
The cops got to get directing traffic and get people moving out of here. We're all sitting ducks if this starts breaching the property line.
Fort McMurray is in the middle of the Borealis Forest. There's one way in and there's one way out. But can the roads take the people? And the rationale was no, the roads can't take the people.
On May 3rd, 2016, a seasonal wildfire unexpectedly burns out of control.
Hasty exit. Might have been the last time I ever saw my house right there. Holy!
It threatens the Canadian oil sands boomtown of Fort McMurray, Alberta.
Mandatory evacuation order. You gotta stay calm.
Lord, keep us safe. Get us out of Fort McMurray in one piece.
That is, babe. Look at that. Oh my God.
Whoa.
I can feel the window is hot.
Fort McMurray is home to 88,000 residents. And if they can make it out of their neighborhoods to reach the only highway in town, they might have a chance to survive.
By now, there are areas of the city that are completely engulfed in fire. It's monstrous. It does whatever it wants to do. It will eat anything in its path.
The beast does not let up. In a terrifying display of its unstoppable power, it jumps across the Athabasca River.
It jumped 1,200 feet.
That was astounding to us, because we had been told time again that the river was enough of a buffer that it wouldn't cross it.
When it reaches something it wants to go across, but naturally it's stopping it, it tends to bend over the top. So that fire load and that wind is forcing it over the top. So those embers fly over now and they start touching down on the other side. You know, in a typical fire, you're talking about little pieces of embers. Here we're talking about whole pieces of trees and flying large debris that's on fire that's now falling on the other side of the river.
It is chaos, really. You hear the emergency sirens going, but I need to show you, it's not just on the border. This is Fort McMurray burning.
Getting the out of Dodge. I can feel the heat here. This is insane. Holy. Oh, you can feel the heat. Holy. This is crazy.
Yeah, we're just stuck on the hill here. I think you may want to consider shutting down 63 or you're not going to be able to get any of those cars that have it now. If you have to shut it down, that's up to you.
This is Highway 63. The fire seems to be burning across the highway. So people who are trying to go southbound on Highway 63 here to get away from all of this now are likely having to turn around.
Holy. Look at that. Roll your window up. Get over that lane. Holy.
I felt I needed to go on the ground to get a sense of what was going on, to feel the situation. When I get to Avocen, I'm watching the side of the hill burning. There's a lineup of vehicles going up the hill. So each vehicle I assessed was about 3 meters long. Given that, I think about 10,000 vehicles have to leave this city. I don't have enough space. And this is where I'm talking with Darby. I said, we've got to move people north and south.
The decision was made that if you lived south of Taganova, you will go south. If you live north of Taganova, you will go north. So we changed the southbound lanes to all be northbound so that the traffic could get out of town.
Our most effective tool, hands down, turned out to be Twitter. There was no fluff language in anything. It was, this community is under mandatory evacuation. This is where you need to go. But you're talking tens of thousands of people getting to see that message really quickly based on how fast it was being shared.
Chris and Gina reunite in a downtown parking lot.
Gave him a big hug. big kiss. Yeah, we held each other for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was nice to get everyone together finally, but, you know, what do we do? Where do we go?
Rock 97.9, sorry to interrupt the Guns N' Roses, but here's what we've heard so far from multiple people. Southbound 63, according to reports, is opened up.
Somebody drove by and hollered out their window, the southbound highway is open. It's open. So we all kind of looked at each other and thought, let's get out of here. Let's make our way towards Edmonton.
We just left Walmart, but everything, like, you remember that hill where we go up? Everything, all that side of the hill's on fire, the other side on the highway, everything is on fire, flames.
Get the hell out of there.
We're leaving now. It is absolutely crazy. Okay, honey, just drive. Get past all this. I don't want to be in this smoke. I want to go.
Gee, I'm going. Just relax. We're doing everything we can.
I know, we're driving into it, and like, I wish I had a mask.
Look at this, G.
Oh my God.
And as we were leaving the city, we drove right into a tremendous wall of smoke and fire. It was on both sides of the highway.
There's not enough firefighters for all this.
Oh my God, if there was, we wouldn't have this. Look at the cars. People parked in the ditch. They just left their cars and got out. What's going on? Look at this. Look at all these cars. Vehicles would stall when they started taking up the smoke. They would get no combustion in their engine, so they were left stuck there.
Oh my God, Chris, look at the other side. Oh my God.
This is just horrific. It was out of a zombie apocalypse movie. Look at this bus. Oh my God. Oh my God, Denny's. Look at this.
Oh my God.
The whole hotel is gone.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Look at this the whole trailer park is gone. One day, and it just ripped through the whole city. One day. So many people's homes are gone. This is, we're finally leaving city limits.
The fire does not let up, and now that the beast has jumped over the Athabasca, it's making its way north of the city.
So now it's got a clear path up towards the majority of our population, 40 or 50,000 residents in the Thickwood and Timberley area.
On May 3rd, 2016, a raging wildfire bursts into the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta.
Holy look at that! Holy
Oh my God. The whole hotel is gone.
All of the lanes south of town are dedicated to south traffic.
3 neighborhoods in the southern part of the town are being evacuated, and the situation worsens when the fire heads north.
Mandatory evacuation for everyone, everywhere. There's the official word we were waiting for.
So now we're faced with a fire coming into town that's approximately 4 or 5 kilometers wide, and it's about 20 kilometers long. We sent approximately 25,000 people north, and we didn't know where we were sending them. We just knew we had to get them out of town at that time.
To the north of the city are the oil sands production facilities, but also the camps that house the workers employed by the energy industry.
A lot of these camps can hold up to a couple thousand workers at a time. They're very large, so I knew there's a safe spot 20 kilometers away. And I started telling everybody, get the message out, everybody goes to Noralta Lodge. From there, we could get people farmed out to all the other camps north of here.
At the Father Turcotte Elementary School in downtown Fort McMurray, a few students are still waiting for their moms and dads. But Principal Lisa Hilsentegger decides it's too dangerous to wait any longer.
There didn't seem to be any more parents showing up at this time. So I did an all-call in the school. We're leaving. Please come to the front. Students got on the bus. I got on, closed the door. There was no doubt in my mind that that was my responsibility to see it to the end, to get all the students home.
Just a repeat for you, a mandatory evacuation for the entire city of Fort McMurray is now in effect.
At this point, we were being told to go north. And it was very slow. It was very hot on the bus. And it was dark, but it was very orange.
Residents go to Noralta Lodge, which is 21 kilometers north of Fort McMurray.
Miguel and Pam Borges are also heading north with their 3 children.
Originally, we were heading north, and that's what the emergency broadcast kept telling us. The highway south is closed. Fires across the highway, you can't go south. And then we're heading down Thickwood Boulevard, and then the police are directing us to go south. So we went south.
We were in separate cars, and I thought, oh, please, do not send him south and me north, because, like, there's just no way. I wouldn't be able to do it. I think I would just disobey and say, nope, sorry, I'm leaving.
63 South, visibility is poor. There's fire right along the side of the highway, but we've had a couple people tell us you can get through, but drive with extreme caution. There are lots of people pulled over on the side of the road.
So we hit the highway, all of a sudden traffic's moving, and then we get up to the bridges to head downtown, and smoke everywhere. And you can't see any of the buildings. And then we see up on Abasan, fires right at the highway.
It's just fire.
Right at
the highway.
And then finally we hit the top of Beacon Hill and we see the hotel on fire and the gas station and everything else is on fire there. We're just gonna keep driving.
The message is to get out. I think people are realizing this now. If they were staying behind, you know, it's just too risky. And when you drive by this, you know why, you have to get out.
While the highway fills up with traffic, firefighters save the homes people have left behind.
You know, I had 32 guys on duty that day. 65 guys came in their own time and fought that fire. We had approximately 100 firefighters from industry that came into town to help us.
They're dumping right at us.
Mel Engelstad was part of that group of first responders.
Oh, here she comes. She's coming through the bushes. The question is, how wide is this sucker?
We are taking communities and saying, we can protect this community, we can save this community, but this one is already so far gone, we need to redeploy and move. There were various areas in the city where it was literally, if we didn't pull those guys out, they wouldn't have survived.
For one firefighter, the fight became very personal.
We had been sent up to assist a pump crew that was up in Abasan. We're driving down my block, and I noticed that I'm looking at my house that's on fire. It's the first one on the block, and it's fully engulfed in flames. I said, oh shit, all right, there it goes. Trampoline was on fire, and my kids played daily on that trampoline. I watched my 69 Firebird in the garage come up in flames. Firebird was on fire. At that moment, my captain got out of the truck to come stand beside me. He put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, do you need a moment? And I said, no, there's nothing we can do here. It's all stuffed and it's all gone. So let's go make a stand somewhere else.
Miguel and Pam have made it out of town. But now they're stuck in traffic, and the next gas station is 200 kilometers away.
So this is when real panic started setting in because Pam's van was going to run out of gas.
Miguel and Pam aren't the only motorists running out of gas. But when stranded evacuees ask for help on social media, a private group of truck enthusiasts comes to the rescue.
So I knew as soon as they were evacuating town that a lot of people wouldn't make it. So we left Edmonton in a group of 3, and we just started kind of putting out messages to whoever else that was coming. We just stopped at one of the card locks on the way. I swiped my card out of my own account, filled up whatever we could hold, and away we went north. So every time that we'd saw someone on the side of the roads, we'd pull a U-turn. We'd say, hey, do you need anything? You know, we have fuel on, we have snacks for the kids, we've got some dog food, cat food. Anyone who needed help, company truck, personal truck, if you needed help, we were there.
By the time Miguel and Pam Borges reach a service station that still has some gas to sell, they're running on fumes.
So we get in the line for gas there. and maybe 1,000 cars, literally 1,000 cars in front of us. And during the line, a woman approached us and said, hey, you got kids, you look tired, do you need a place to stay? If so, they're about to open a camp. They're about to open, it's not open yet, about 1 kilometer down the road. She said, yeah, sure, we have no plans, you know, we've been driving all day.
The Borges family finally arrives at the Wandering River Camp, an oil industry facility.
So they have a lady at the desk. You give them your license plate number, and it's like, okay, go get something to eat. So it was like the best chicken fingers ever, because we were really hungry.
Back up north, Principal Lisa is still on the school bus with her precious cargo.
Now I'm getting phone calls from parents. Where are you? Do you have my child? They're frantic. And I remained as calm as I could. We have them. They're safe. They're good. This is where we're at. We'll find you. Where are you?
It takes them 5 hours to reach an oil camp. There, Lisa reunites more students with their parents. But when she learns that the route south is open again, she rounds up the few kids still in her charge and decides to take the chance.
It was black. You could just barely see the lines on the road. When we got closer to the city, we saw the hotel along Highway 63 had burned. So we knew that Beacon Hill was gone. Once we got to the south end of the city, we knew we were going to be okay.
Lisa takes the last kids to her dad's place, where they stayed for a few days until they were reunited with their parents.
And finally, at this point, I thought, I did my job.
As his firefighters work into the night, battling multiple fires spreading throughout the city, Chief Darby delivers a sobering update.
It's in the city. It is impacting communities as we speak, and homes are on fire as we speak. It's a sad day for everyone in McMurray. We've had a devastating day.
May 3rd, 2016 delivered a devastating blow to the city of Fort McMurray, when a ferocious wildfire swept into the oil sands boomtown and forced 88,000 people to flee for their lives.
We successfully evacuated 88,000 people. No one is hurt, and no one has passed away right now. I really hope that we get to the end of this and we can still say that. When first light came on the 4th, we managed to get some reconnaissance and see what had happened. And I felt a weight lift off to my shoulder once we realized that the people were out, because that creates a different dynamic. Now we're fighting structure fire.
The fire they nicknamed the Beast is still raging, and it's getting bigger.
It was everywhere. We use the term the Beast. I call it a three-headed monster because it was going east, then it went north, it went south. It was constantly changing.
We literally walls of flames. At times there's walls of flames like that, 100 feet tall on 3 sides of us.
This thing was a living thing. No matter what you were doing, it was going to do something else.
We were fighting the Beast. It was a fight. You go and you go and you go until there's no more give.
It was moving sometimes, 3 meters per minute, then 12 meters per minute, and then we were hearing 102 meters per minute.
It seemed to have a mind of its own. It did whatever it wanted, it went where it wanted. It was a living, breathing, eating machine. It was hungry. The Beast was hungry, and we had to try and get ahead of it.
As the Beast grows in size and power, it creates its own weather system. As intense heat from the ground rises up, the smoke carries water vapor and ash and forms into a pyrocumulus cloud. As the hot air moves up, cooler air rushing in to replace it produces severe gusts of wind inside the inferno, which in turn fuels the fire. By now, firefighters from other parts of the province have joined Darby's troops to help save homes and critical infrastructure, but they're running on empty.
A couple of our members are actually volunteer firefighters. One of them messaged us and said, you need to get here as quick as you can because a lot of the fire trucks are running out of fuel. We have nothing. We drove up the highway from the police roadblock and we literally drove through 3 or 4 sections of fire on either side of the road. Pitch dark, smoke so thick that you could barely see the vehicle in front of you.
We need light plants and generators.
Where are you?
Oh, well, right now I'm escorting fuel through a burning hell. Up 63.
We had 860,000 liters of fuel. We thought if anyone looked at this from the outside, they'd think we're crazy. We're literally driving a vehicle loaded with a bomb through an inferno. They couldn't really believe that we were just a regular bunch of guys that figured that someone would need help, and we just kind of showed up.
Back near the Athabasca River, the fire is still raging and is fast approaching one of the city's most critical pieces of infrastructure.
This water treatment plant is what feeds all the hydrants that's being used in the firefight.
As a firefighter, the worst thing you feel is when you don't feel that pressure in that hose line and that water's not coming in the end.
As the fire advances towards the plant, a skeleton crew of engineers man the pumps to keep the water flowing.
You could stand in this control room here and look out at the fire, and you could watch the flame start up when a wind gust came through and go back down. Like, the fire was everywhere.
Those guys were still in the water treatment plant, keeping that water going with fire totally around.
The firefighters are doing their part to help fight the fire on the front line. We need to provide them with water.
If we had lost our water treatment plant, we would have lost our city.
In the following days, strong gusts of wind fanned the fires.
Now it's heading towards those oil sands plants where we've got all those people.
I had to evacuate north to one of the camps up north, and one of the big fears up in the northern camps was, well, what if the fire went north and continued going north and blocked off the highway? We would essentially all be stranded up there, and by day 2, that was becoming a real sense of worry.
So we brought them out in convoys. RCMP vehicle in the front. I believe there was 30 or 40 vehicles at a time in that convoy.
The energy companies also charter additional planes to fly evacuees and their pets to Edmonton and Calgary.
Once you started hearing about the flight starting to go out, I think there was a little bit more calmness in those camps from the evacuees, because they knew that they were going to get to safety sooner rather than later.
In all, about 25,000 people were evacuated from the northern camps. And as they fled, hundreds of firefighters flew in from all over Canada to assist in driving out the beast. By May 12th, through the persistence and bravery of many, the fire was finally chased out of Fort McMurray.
Hey everybody, just want to let you know we think we got this thing beat in McMurray. So I just want to let you know, like, we just can't let you back until it's safe. We got to check the electricity, water, all that stuff. So we'll get you back as soon as we can, we promise. Be patient, look after yourselves, take care.
Now the question on everyone's mind is, how much damage did the city suffer, and whose homes are still standing? For a whole week and all around the clock, hundreds of firefighters battle the terrifying blaze that engulfs Fort McMurray, Alberta. On May 13, 2016, Chief Darby Allen confirms that within city limits, the fire is under control.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much.
But that doesn't mean 88,000 evacuees can now return home.
I know that everyone is anxious to return home. We're anxious for you to return home. But there is some work to be done to make sure it's safe for everyone before that can happen.
Chief Darby takes Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Alberta Premier Rachel Notley on a tour for a first-hand look at the destruction. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed. In total, about 2,700 homes have burned to the ground, and many more have sustained severe damage. But this tally only accounts for bricks and mortar. It does not include the deep emotional distress that now affects the entire community.
For many years, Fort McMurray contributed huge amounts to the growth of our economy. Now this community needs help, and I can guarantee you, Canada will be here for this community.
It will be weeks before the city is ready for residents to return. But it could have been a lot worse.
In those early days, we knew that we had managed to save a good chunk of the properties, and you know, it turned out that we saved around 84% of the properties.
The city was surrounded by an ocean of fire, but Fort McMurray and the surrounding communities have been saved, and they will be rebuilt.
But getting the city ready to take back 88,000 residents is easier said than done.
It's really easy to turn the switch off, but to start it on again is a whole lot more work. You've got to get banks back online, you've got gas stations back online. And the big part about that too is that when you evacuate everybody, that means all your workers are gone too.
While the city of Fort McMurray prepares to rise from the ashes, the beast still roams the forest.
Even though it's outside the city, it was still burning out there. It headed across into Saskatchewan.
It would take another month and the help of Mother Nature to bring the fire under control. By then, it had spread across more than 589,000 hectares of wilderness. A very large area, but for experts, it comes with the territory.
In Canada, on average, we have about 7,000 forest fires, and it burns about 2 million hectares, which is about half the size of Nova Scotia.
Fires are part of the natural cycle of the boreal forest. Fire reduces the spread of disease and resets the clock for new generations of trees.
We have fire in the landscape. Wherever we have vegetation, we can have fire. Unfortunately, sometimes communities get in the way of the path of a fire, as in the case in Fort McMurray, and then you have disastrous results. Now, the fire is still under investigation. We're not sure exactly what caused it. It may have been a four-wheeled vehicle from a spark hitting a rock, or sometimes material gets caught up on the muffler and it heats up and starts to smolder, and then the wind comes along and we're off to the races.
Whatever made the spark, it was a human who caused the fire. But it will take years of study before the increasing risk and severity of wildfires in the Canadian boreal forest can be fully understood.
Fire in Canada has doubled since the 70s, and we believe this is due to human-caused climate change. 3 reasons. Fire seasons are longer. The official fire season in Alberta now starts March 1st. It used to be April 1st. Second, the warmer it gets, the more lightning we get. The more lightning we get, everything else being equal, the more fires we get. Third reason, as the atmosphere warms, fuels will be drier, easier for fires to start and spread. So we expect more intense fires in the future.
The re-entry date is set for June 1st. As thousands prepare to return, the city tries to help soften the shock.
When you leave and all you see is a burning wall of fire, you know, you're going to think the worst. And so it was our job to make sure that there was hope.
The communication team sets up a website that posts aerial before and after photographs of every single residential and commercial property in Fort McMurray.
We had to preface that with the knowledge that this may be the way that you find out that you've lost your home. And that there was, when you first got to this website, that message did come up. We understand that it was going to be a very challenging and emotionally hard experience for a lot of folks and that lost their homes. And you know, this isn't just a house that you lose, it's a lifetime of memories in a lot of cases.
Many months would pass before all the financial costs would be known. Calculating the emotional toll of the fires on families and marriages will be more difficult to assess for those who decide to leave and start a new life elsewhere, and those who choose to stay, to rebuild and to resume their lives in the town they call home. By June 1st, 88,000 Fort McMurray residents begin returning to their communities, and a welcoming committee is awaiting them.
We drove in, and just as we're up to the bridge, Carmen wakes up, and she sees the firefighters, and she's like, "Are we home? Are we home?" And she was super excited. She started to cry, and then, of course, I started to cry.
Our chief, Darby Allen, organized 2 trucks to stay on top of the bridge coming into town. We had a huge 50-foot Canadian flag flapping in the air, and 2 crews of firefighters standing on the bridge waving at everyone coming in through on us.
You know, there was a lot of honking horns and tears, and for my guys that were on that bridge, it meant a lot for them too.
We were the last people they see when they left the town. So for them to see us coming back into town, standing there waving at them, I think that hit a lot of hearts in a great way.
But for many returning residents, the firefighters' warm welcome was followed by a devastating and heartbreaking sight. Entire neighborhoods destroyed by the wildfires.
I knew that the house wasn't going to survive, but there's always that hope. You know, you hope that you have a home to come home to.
All that remains of Chris Burrow's house is an empty lot filled with ashes and debris.
There was a few things that we managed to pull out of the remains. This is what's left of my grandfather's watch from after the war. This was what my mom kept and would put our family's baby teeth in. So other than that, everything perished in the fire, and it was tragic.
Whoa, it jumped the road from over here.
As Jason Louvel and his girlfriend drive into their neighborhood, it appears that most of the homes have been destroyed.
What you're looking at is supposed to be all houses. All these houses, look, those houses, perfectly fine, eh? They just sprayed over them so it wouldn't burn.
But near the end of the road, they see that their house has been spared.
The house, it was in rough shape, you know, there was ash in the house. We had left a few windows open, and so it was smoked out a bit. But it was phenomenal to come and see the house still here, and it's a good feeling. Wrapped in a cocoon. We had to wash all the walls in the house, and down in the basement, all the floors had to be scrubbed. Holy had to get the ceilings repainted. The last step. Looking back on it, it's hard. It fills me up sometimes still, talking about it and just thinking about it. Almost back to normal. Hey, puppy.
For now, the hard-working people of Fort McMurray remain focused on rebuilding their homes and their communities and making Fort Mac a safer and better place to live.
You know, it's an unbelievable town, and I've only worked here for 7 years, but this place welcomed me, and I feel a tremendous kinship, ownership with the people here. And I think, if anything, you know, this has maybe let the rest of the country know that it's a pretty good place to be.
looked down, the river was racing below our living room window. And that's when I really went into a panic.
Oh my God.
Within a couple of hours, it went from nothing to 4 feet of water.
This storm system was stalled right over us. When was it going to end?
We're in front of a dam, and they were very concerned that if they didn't release the water, it was going to break.
I'm up on the roof, all of a sudden down the main street comes this big, dirty, 12 feet up truck. It looked like our way out.
Holy.
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are the first-hand accounts of a planet going rogue. On Wednesday, June 19th, 2013, torrential rains trigger the worst flood in Alberta's history. It became known as the Flood of Floods.
There it is.
Over 100,000 people are forced out of their homes, and 5 lives are lost. The destructive power and speed of the floodwaters caught everyone by surprise, including meteorologist David Spence.
I had no idea the enormity of what was to come. Sure, we saw heavy rain coming, but the full consequences of that heavy rain, I don't think we realized at that point.
Well, there's a little bit of lightning going on close by. It's not directly over me. Oh, almost over me. Look at the snow.
Up in the Rocky Mountains, layers of snow that have accumulated over a long, hard winter are still melting.
Somewhere just south of Canmore, and it is just freaking storming out here. So it's raining like crazy. All the little creeks are swelling up. You can see on the roadside there, all the little ditches are, mudding up with water. And
the runoff from the melting snow pours into Cougar Creek in Canmore, where John Marriott lives.
It was just incredible. There was all of a sudden water in there, a couple feet worth of water in there. And we were quite excited, thinking, wow, never seen Cougar Creek actually flowing before. So took a couple of videos and went to bed and didn't really think anything else of it.
What John doesn't know is that southern Alberta is about to get slammed by a perfect storm of powerful and diverse weather systems.
June 13th, I noticed that there was a big low-pressure system in the Pacific, off the west coast. And these things develop all the time, but this one was just hanging out there, and it stayed out there for several days. And then it made a connection with the jet stream and started to move to the east. And then it hits terrain, it hits the foothills and the mountains, and that causes the air to move up. Added to that, we had something called an atmospheric river. That atmospheric river drew some moisture all the way from the Gulf of Mexico, connecting with this circulation, and it's just like the low-pressure system itself. When that moisture goes up the slope, it rises, cools, condenses, and generates even more rainfall.
Good morning, Rob Murray here. A local state of emergency has been declared in Canmore. Sorry, give me a second to catch my breath. I was right upstairs. Whew.
I got dressed really quickly, ran out the door, and got to the radio station, ran up the stairs, turned on the microphone, and breathlessly just started saying, "State of emergency, here we go."
Canmore, Alberta, located about 100 kilometers west of Calgary, sits at the edge of the Banff National Park in the Rockies. The town, elevation about 1,400 meters, is home to over 13,000 residents.
Banks of Cougar Creek are unstable. Please stay away from Cougar Creek.
Instead of the creek being 50 yards away from us, suddenly it was 10 yards away from it was almost right at our fence line. And we all of a sudden realized, holy cow, this is serious. It was a bit surreal because we're looking at the creek and we're trying to decide, how fast is it eating away at these banks? How much time do we have?
The runoff that was starting to occur in the mountains was already affecting towns in the mountains in the foothills, towns like Canmore, where Cougar Creek, which is normally a pretty dry stream bed, all of a sudden is full of water and property is getting destroyed.
I cannot believe this, man. It's insane.
And then sort of 7:38, things really started taking a turn for the worse, and it started eating away into our backyard. I put in a call to my insurance company at 8 a.m. and they phoned me back at 8:01. As soon as they opened and said, "You're actually not covered under insurance."
This is unbelievable devastation. I cannot believe it. These houses are all screwed.
I remember this moment. I walked into my living room and I looked down, and right below me, the river was racing, literally below our living room window. And I thought, I got to get out of here. I should not be standing here. That's when I think we both really went into a panic. We thought we were going to lose our house at that point. And I just turned around and walked straight out of the house.
Our planet is in turmoil, and I'm watching it with my own eye. Like, this is a 100-year flood. This stuff doesn't happen. This is just unbelievable. I cannot believe it.
It is flowing like crazy. There is some major erosion on the banks. And wow, I've never seen it flowing like this before. So again, town of Canmore has declared a state of local emergency.
The first call I made was to my wife, like, you have to leave. You have to go now. Pack up a bag, get the dog, the cat, our 2-year-old child at the time, and just go. It was absolutely pouring rain. Not only was Cougar Creek flowing, but pretty much any mountain creek around here were raging torrents that were carving a path of destruction through roads, highways, anything in their path.
Highway 40 in Kananaskis closed in a couple of sections, north end of Kananaskis Village, another in the south end at Fortress Junction.
Oh no, this is no good. I don't even think we can get into the tap.
Toronto-based Nick Savarna and his business partner Tim Rydell are driving to Banff for work.
While we were near Canmore, we started to notice water going over the highway, torrential downpour. It was ripping down trees, bringing trees along the side, and it's actually going to wash it out.
Doesn't look too good. Oh no.
We came up to a wall of vehicles, and we were told to get off the highway because it was about to be washed out.
Apparently there's a huge slide. He doesn't know whether the slide was west of Banff, but he says we can try going up here and cutting across and taking Highway 40. But he says it might be, it might be closed too.
All the bridges are blown out. There's bulldozers in the creek beds trying to widen them so that the water has somewhere to funnel through. And there's still water literally just pumping out of these mountains like a broken faucet.
Banff and Canmore are situated near the top of the Bow River Basin. The Bow River usually runs across the slopes of the Rockies, through Calgary, and drops down, running almost all the way to Medicine Hat. But now the water flow is growing so quickly, it's spilling over its banks and is beginning to destroy the Trans-Canada Highway, the main road connecting the communities of southern Alberta.
The Trans-Canada currently closed both east and westbound at Cougar Creek. Town of Canmore has declared a state of local emergency.
Hey, how do we get back to Calgary?
At this point, you don't.
The road's closed?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, at this point, we're kind of stuck, and we got a couple of washouts at this end we're working on, trying to clear it up, so at this point, you can't.
So the only place basically we can go is back in there?
Yeah.
So at this point, we can neither go back to Calgary nor go on to Banff.
Right now we're heading towards Cougar Creek. It's still raining very hard. It doesn't appear that it's going to stop anytime soon.
This is the first natural disaster that I've experienced, and it was just really hard to feel stuck in one place. You're just under Mother Nature and under her will, and you just have to take it.
The highways are washed out. People cannot get in or out of town, and we don't know how bad this is going to get.
And that's exactly what David Spence is trying to predict.
David Spence is in our Skywatch Weather Center. David, more rain on the way, but where does it stand right now?
Now, the heaviest rain still to come will be in the area that least needs it. So that would be the Canmore-Bow Valley region. But in the news broadcast, they can tell you what's happening and what has happened. It's my job to tell you what's going to happen. And when you have a weather event like this, and you know that you've already missed a lot of the impact by forecasting a third of the rain that's going to fall, You're concentrating really hard and working really hard to get it right and make sure the information from there on in is correct, accurate, saves property and saves lives.
Before the Bow River monitoring gauges blew out, they recorded peak flow rates of about 1,000 cubic meters of water per second. Now the water is flowing into adjacent rivers, including the Highwood River.
And that river just happens to take some of its twists and turns right through the town of High River. So water wants to flow in a straight line, but if your riverbank is turning, the water's going to go over the riverbank and into the town.
This is an Alberta emergency alert. Highwood River has caused serious flooding in High River. If you are in the affected area, evacuate immediately.
Oh my God.
A mandatory evacuation is ordered. But for many High River residents, including Jonathan Reimer, his sister, and his dad, it's too late.
There is a mandatory evacuation, and we get into the truck, and at that point, the water's already half a foot up the tires.
We were driving, and we heard of lots of cars stalling and people having to escape and get onto their roofs, and the water was rushing in fast.
Uh-oh. No catcher. Yeah, this is getting deep. I don't want to be stranded in a vehicle.
It was just like the muddiest water you've ever seen, and it was everywhere. If you've ever seen a really, really dirty river, that's what it looked like, except it was everywhere, as far as the eye could see water.
And downtown at the Sobeys grocery store where Jen Keys just started her shift, the situation is no better.
Everywhere you look, there's water, and it's fast. Like, it's not just slowly seeping in water. This water's coming fast. Within a couple of hours, it went from nothing to 4 feet of water. It's just coming and coming and coming, and there's just no end to it. We're watching our vehicles in the parking lot, the water get higher and higher. By that time, the water in the parking lot was at least hip level, so we kind of did what we could to barricade the front door.
But when the water starts pouring in, they know they're in trouble.
It was scary, it was surreal, it was, I don't know, so many emotions. Everybody was speechless. What do you say?
On June 20th, 2013, the flood of floods is turning large parts of southern Alberta into a disaster zone.
This is unbelievable devastation.
Overflowing rivers rush down the slopes of the Rockies, destroying critical infrastructure and thousands of homes. And for Jonathan Reimer and his family, there seems to be no way out of High River.
That's blocked off out there. Yeah, I don't think we're going anywhere.
By the time we were done driving in circles, it was another half foot up. It had risen for every minute we were out there, it had gone up another 2 or 3 centimeters.
Yeah, I think we should turn back while we still can.
As we were driving, none of us felt right to continue forward, and there were lots of other vehicles out there trying to get away, and it just didn't feel right that we would continue on, and so we turned around.
Yeah, we're stuck.
Center Avenue, right near 3rd Street Northwest, is completely taken over by the river. There's a lot of water here, and it's still coming. It's still getting higher. Okay, if you're in High River, get out.
Holy cow.
Powerless in the grips of such a deluge, the residents' only refuge is on top of their roofs.
Water's pushing 4 feet up the doorway, each side coming through. I scrambled up the stairs, and now I'm out on the roof, and here we are standing now, looking over the town that's completely gone.
That is crazy.
We went upstairs. We didn't know if somebody was coming to get us or what was going on.
Good morning, the Eagle.
Oh, this is Sonia calling from High River.
Oh, hi.
Our town is in a complete panic of a state.
With such a late warning, High River residents are in shock. It seemed no one had seen this coming.
In the mountains where the Highwood River starts, that was the area of the greatest rainfall. That was the area where they had 300 millimeters of rain, and all that came down the Highwood and had nowhere to go but to flood the town.
First responders and other members of the community initiate search and rescue operations for the 13,400 residents and visitors in the town. 150 of them from rooftops.
There was people getting rescued from other businesses around and stuff, and they were rescuing them in like dump trucks and front-end loaders and whatever they could, right?
I'm up on the roof and I realize we're not getting down. There's nowhere to go. And all of a sudden, just like the cavalry coming, this big dump truck comes down the street, plowing through the water. It looked like our way out. Everyone was dirty and muddy and wet, but we know we're getting out of there.
Jeez, eh?
This wasn't in the plans this morning.
We tried to flag people down, and we actually caught the attention of a manure truck that was going down the streets as well. So they were waving at us, so we climbed down.
I'm seeing windows knocked out of buildings. It's a complete shambles. There's people sitting in their stores on their counters waiting to get out because they couldn't get out the doors. The pressure of the water was too hard to get out.
Well, there's somebody upstairs there.
I don't know where higher ground is.
All of the stores, there's water in them. The manure truck is still picking up more people. And there's brand new SUVs that you can just watch the water as it fills the interiors. And we realized this is really bad.
And then we heard helicopters. Somebody went out and we flagged the helicopter down to let them know that we were in the store. And then we started sending people to the back to go up the roof. Well, I'm in the helicopter and I'm looking out the window and I see dirty water everywhere. That's all you see. And there's no definition. I don't see vehicles. I'm not seeing roads. I don't see sidewalks. I don't see parks. I just see, everywhere I look, I just see water. And I see water rushing where water shouldn't be. That's when I think to myself, holy crap, like this is crazy. This is bad.
But it was about to get a lot worse.
People were losing their property. People were losing their homes to flooding. Some people had lost their lives by this point. When was it going to end?
When the low-pressure system that originated in the Pacific moved into northern Montana and up into southern Alberta, it was blocked by a high-pressure system to the north. Meteorologists call this phenomenon a Rex block.
It just kept dumping moisture, tons of moisture on southern Alberta. I mean, this storm system was stalled right over us. When was it going to move out? This is when I first realized the rain is not going to stop anytime soon, and that this flood is going to intensify, and then it was going to get a lot worse before it gets better. I knew, you know, this is more than a Canmore story. This is going to be a Calgary story as well, because these rivers do flow fast, and it wasn't going to take very long for the floodwaters that were in Canmore to reach Calgary.
Calgary is one of Canada's largest cities. Once nicknamed Cowtown by cattle farmers and cowpokes, Calgary exploded during the oil boom of the 1970s. Today, Calgary is a cosmopolitan city of skyscrapers and industry, with a population of over 1 million. But Cowtown still celebrates its roots every July with the massive Calgary Stampede.
Downtown is a very low-lying area. We have Mission District, the Stampede grounds, all very close to the Elbow River. Now, many of the people living in those areas had also been through earlier flooding. There was a flood in 2005. And I was hoping they weren't thinking this was going to be another 2005, because this was going to be much worse.
The flood of 2005 destroyed 40,000 homes in the city, and this was expected to be worse.
The water coming under the Bow River Bridge is rising pretty high right now.
Soon this will be all underwater. Yeah, it's insane.
On June 20th, 2013, Alberta's superflood devastated 1/4 of the province.
These houses are all screwed.
Torrential rains, melting snow, and overflowing rivers forced southern Alberta to declare a state of local emergency in 9 different localities. And as a raging river of angry floodwaters rushes towards Calgary, John Marriott in Canmore wonders if his house will survive.
We are going to stay here. We feel it's safer for us here than going downtown and being just part of the chaos down there. You know, it kind of also allowed us to keep watch on our house a bit, which we were concerned about. We kind of wanted to be there if it went.
It's still raining, and I can still sort of see through the cracks between the houses that the river's still going pretty strongly, and it's right against this side, running up against all of our houses.
We were able to get some news out to people, both family and friends. Person up the street ended up getting us to go up to their house, and we went up there and took some stuff out of their safe that they did not want to lose.
Back to our top story now. In major flooding across southern Alberta tonight, mandatory evacuations in some communities. David Spence standing by in our Skywatch Weather Center.
By the time we got to the 5 o'clock broadcast, we had reports coming in from all over southern Alberta. If you are in this area, you're in for a lot more rainfall. The rainfall warning still in effect.
As the Bow River overflows, rushing high waters tear through many small communities and resort villages on its banks, including Kananaskis, Wypers Lake, and Bragg Creek, population 454. And everyone knows Calgary is next.
The Bow is in a fairly steep valley. Much of the city, thankfully, is well above the level that the Bow River would ever flood. But downtown Calgary, some of the older parts of the city, very vulnerable to flooding.
Low-lying neighborhoods near the Bow and Elbow rivers are under mandatory evacuation. Doug Griffiths is in charge of emergency management.
I was thinking the most important message we're going to need to get out is that people need to comply with the request to evacuate. It's saving lives that's the most important part in those first few hours.
As a last resort, authorities reach out to the companies overseeing the hydroelectric dams along the river.
There's 11 dams along the Bow River. And so the concept was, let's just catch more of the water as it comes flowing through. Except they are retention dams, not detention dams.
Detention dams relocate water, but retention dams hold water on a more permanent basis. Now they're filled to the brim, and engineers need to decide if they can hold the water or release it.
Here we are with a flood coming, and there's no easy decision. If you let water go, you save the dam, but the devastation could be magnitudes much worse downstream. But if you hold it and the dam breaks, you amplify it even further.
My concern at that time was, is the Ghost Lake Dam going to hold this water? Is the Ghost Lake Dam going to prevent flooding in Calgary? I didn't know, because it's not a huge dam.
The Ghost Lake Dam is the closest dam upriver from Calgary. It's a hydroelectric dam, generating about 51 megawatts of electricity a year, enough to power over 60,000 homes. The engineers shut the gates and halt the water. With the Bow River gushing at a rate of 2,300 cubic meters of water per second, the reservoir is now full, and engineers have no choice but to release some water onto the spillways.
This is an Alberta emergency alert. City of Calgary has issued an overland flood alert. This is a mandatory evacuation. Evacuate immediately.
In Calgary, Colleen Baird is not taking any chances.
They're saying it's going to happen. The water will rise and cover a good part of the island, and we need to start moving animals.
The Calgary Zoo was built on an island in the middle of the river, and its many residents include large mammals and dangerous predators.
We had tiger cubs, we had a mom, and then another male, so we had lots of tigers. So our vet team had to come down and start to anesthetize 6 tigers, and it takes time. We had, lions, we have snow leopards, and so we had to immobilize a lot of large cats on that day. We have to find crates. We have to catch animals. We need nets. We need X amount of crates for these species. We need so many crates over here. And as the day was happening, it was going so fast. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna take us way longer than I thought.
As night falls over the province, Colleen is still moving her animals to safety. Just past 1 in the morning, she finally gets a chance to take a brief nap.
I'm sleeping on my cot, and the phone rang. It was our facilities director, and he said, Colleen, what does it look like out there? I get outside, and I see, for the first time, water, and a lot of water.
And while they moved as many animals off the island as they could, some are still in their enclosures.
We went to the building where the giraffe and hippos are being kept, and I noticed that the window's broken below the water. And I was like, oh my goodness, a hippo could escape here. A hippo could leave this building and come and share the same space where I am in this boat.
A massive and unrelenting rainfall has swollen the rivers and creeks of southern Alberta. Torrential runoffs from the Rocky Mountains submerged small towns along the Bow River. Now downtown Calgary is under attack. And on the morning of June 21st, Doug Griffiths surveys the damage from the air.
I have never seen so much water in my life. It was as though there were high-rises popping out of a lake. You know, I've seen flooding in small communities before, but to see an entire downtown core of a city under 10, 12 feet of water, the Saddle Dome was a third full of water. It felt apocalyptic.
Downtown is shut down, and I mean shut down. There is the Saddle Dome underwater. Apparently up to 10 rows up are underwater inside.
The Saddle Dome, home to the NHL's Calgary Flames and the 1988 Winter Olympics, suffers major damage. The floodwaters submerged the dressing rooms, the ice plant, ice resurfacing machines, and the kitchens. And everything on the Saddle Dome event level, the nerve center for games and concerts, is a total loss.
We were aghast for the first while and in shock.
At the Calgary Zoo, Colleen Baird has moved as many animals off the island as she could, but the big animals still remain locked in their enclosures.
I couldn't get into the building where the giraffe and hippos are being kept. So my colleague and I, we went to the back of the building to see if we can look into some of the windows. And just out of chance, a hippo head appeared in the window. And I had that wonderful moment where I'm like, oh, thank goodness, the hippo is alive. And then he goes underwater, and I noticed that the window's broken below the water. And I felt at that point, a hippo could escape here. A hippo could leave this building and come and share the same space where I am in this boat.
As well as being rather large, hippos are also rather aggressive, especially when defending their territory.
At that point, I didn't know where the hippo was, and my colleague and I, we had to act. This hippo needed to stay in this building. We had this container full of straw, the metal container. We were able to get it in position, open the doors, sink it, flood it, and secure it in front of that window so that a hippo could not come out that window. So he was contained and in the building. At that point, we knew that we were safe, and we knew the hippos were secure.
"26 Calgary neighborhoods are under mandatory evacuation. But a few good neighbors are staying behind and volunteering to help.
Shima, look at this. It's okay, we should just go.
Roham Palavan and his wife patrol the Rideau community.
When I saw the old lady with a walker up to her waist in water, my heart sank.
Do you need help? This way.
The water was so cold for a young and healthy man. I couldn't imagine what it was like for her. And I couldn't imagine even how far she had walked, because it was in the middle of the parking lot where I picked her up. So we brought the first two people to the edge of the shore and we let them out of the truck. And then we drove back into where I saw another building.
My husband there trying to get my mom out of that building. She's 80-some years old lady there.
Okay, we're
Give
good.
her a ride back here.
Sure, of course.
He's right there in the yellow jacket.
Okay,
Just get her
don't worry.
We We started ferrying people out maybe at around 11:30 or 12. Before I knew it, it was 4 p.m. And we were wet and we were cold.
To make matters even worse, the water is not just coming from up above, it's also coming up from down below.
It's overflowing here into the street.
One of the major issues that we were facing was the sewer backing up, clogging streets and into homes. It became a public health issue. Every city's set up in a very similar way. The sewer water gets cleaned, it gets drained into the river, but when the river fills up because of the flood, it backs up, and then it's got nowhere to go, and you combine that with the stormwater coming into the stormwater system, and it meets in the middle and creates massive pressure. And you wind up with a situation where we had actually heard of manhole covers just flipping off like dimes because the pressure was so great.
Millions of gallons of sewage. That is raw sewage. It stinks.
Kit Kaiser experienced the full destructive power of the water when he checked on his grandparents' house.
You know, the first part was getting into the house, just getting the door open. Everything's warped at that point, and you're trying to push in, and there's water inside the house. But then you walk inside, and everything that's not attached is moved, and a big countertop, it was flipped over and tossed on the floor. Nice layer of mud everywhere.
It's up. The flow of water is unstoppable, and all the authorities can do is to give residents advance notice of the impending disaster.
There was no way we were going to be able to stop the water that day. Getting people to safety was the most important aspect, and it was for those that afternoon that were flooding, but also to give advance warning to the communities downriver that the flood was still coming to hit.
Look at this, it is an ocean.
It is an ocean.
It is an ocean. Did I get off this bridge?
Yeah, hurry.
Downstream from Calgary at the bottom of the Bow River Basin, the people of Medicine Hat know they're sitting directly in the path of the oncoming flood. And many people, like Damien Voisin, prepare for the worst.
Just the community getting together. I'm sorry the video's shaky. That's my hands shaking. So I've been going steady for the last 5 hours.
So we're watching on the news this devastation that happened in High River and how Calgary's being affected by this, and they're getting hit pretty hard. So we've come to the realization it's coming here. We better get ready because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. They have no idea how bad it's going to be.
Evacuation order, so let's get as much done to help people out as we can.
A bunch of people came. It was great. Some people were just bringing in coffee and donuts because they couldn't do the physical part, so that was their part. And other people were just helping with the filling of the sandbags. Other people were carting them to where they had to be. And we were helping one house, the other house. It didn't matter. We were just helping each other. We started sandbagging the front door, and then we were doing the basement windows and everything else that we could figure out and kind of get it as best as we could and make sure everything was covered around the foundation.
And now we're just plugging up the drains as best we can to prevent it from backflowing into the house.
I've read and I've seen, even on the news, they're talking about it, where the biggest problem was a sewer backup and people's houses being full of, you know, not very good stuff. And that's the worst stuff to have to clean up, and does the most damage.
So we got sinks plugged. Oh, we gotta do this sink still. And we got the toilet plugged. Got a sandbag on the bottom drain.
It might not stop it completely, but might prevent more damage than necessary.
Hopefully, this will be enough. If it's not enough, then I don't know what to say. I don't even want to think about it.
With the floodwaters speeding towards Medicine Hat, Damien can only hope his work is not in vain. A torrential rainfall over southern Alberta has triggered the worst flooding in the history of the province.
Our planet is in turmoil. Like, this is a 100-year flood. This is just unbelievable. I cannot believe it.
But there's no denying it. This flood is a dangerous killer. Under mandatory evacuation, thousands have already fled their homes. and the floodwaters continue to rise.
Holy cow.
Look at this. It is an ocean. Dad, get off this bridge.
Yeah, hurry.
With homes and now critical infrastructure at risk, Doug Griffiths, the Minister of Municipal Affairs in Alberta, calls for reinforcements.
We had the Army who had joined us with 2,200 troops. We had the Alberta Sheriff's Department and the RCMP coordinating for search and rescue. We had a massive amount of personnel had come together from all sorts of emergency services across the province, which made the rescue efforts very successful.
Helicopters are dispatched, including a Lockheed C-130 Hercules, to help evacuate people stranded by the floodwaters. Emergency operations are in full force when meteorologist David Spence realizes there's a break in the weather system.
At that point, we started to see the storm starting to move. So not only were we able to go on the air and give people the information they needed, we also gave them the information they wanted to hear, which was that the storm was finally going to pull out.
Well, the news from the Skywatch Weather Center is all good this morning. All the warnings have ended, not only in Alberta, but in all of Canada. There are no weather warnings.
So it was kind of a cathartic situation that we were finally able to say, hey, this thing's winding down. This thing's coming to an end.
Under sunny skies in Canmore, Nicholas Savarna and his business partner, Tim Rydell, are on the move. They got a tip that one side of the Trans-Canada Highway had been opened, and local police were providing escorts for a few small groups of vehicles headed towards Calgary.
Woo! Are we going home?
Yep. Dude, what luck? What luck? All right, here we go. Here we go.
Being able to get on that highway and be escorted out of the mountains towards Calgary, we're jumping for joy. We're slapping the steering wheel. We're excited. It was just pure happiness at this point and relief.
But not everyone has somewhere to go. When the Bow River spilled its banks, several large Siksika First Nation communities an hour east of Calgary were devastated.
They had over 1,000 people that needed to be evacuated, if I recall, and 200 homes that were destroyed because they were down near the river too. And they were just as devastated as any of the other communities that we worked with.
The flood destroyed or damaged 1,000 Medicine Hat homes. But when the rising waters stopped short of expected levels, some owners caught a lucky break.
It looks like the water didn't even touch it. Looks like it was all for naught, which is better than frickin' anything I can imagine.
I mean, you feel bad for the houses that were affected, but it wasn't, you know, up to your second story or the whole floor, you know, taken out or anything like that. It was mostly basements and, you know, some people's backyards, but not just total devastation.
But no, this is awesome news. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Not everyone was so lucky. Authorities confirmed that 4 people lost their lives in the disaster. And a 33-year-old woman, Jackie Brocklebank from High River, was still missing. For 2 days, Jackie's family searched the evacuation centers in and around High River in vain. Then Jackie's mother received word that her daughter's body had been found. She'd lost her life in the floodwaters.
My understanding is that the water came and Jackie got hit by debris.
Just a few hours before she was killed, Jackie saved the life of a friend.
I think it's really important that High River remember the lives that were lost, and she was an important part of this town.
Jackie's death raised the death toll to 5. As waters slowly recede in Calgary, they tell a different story in High River. The town, named after the Highwood River that runs through it, is up to its neck in filthy, stagnant floodwater.
With the immediate disaster behind us, we had to try and hire the right team to come in and do the cleanup.
Commercial divers, bulldozers, and truckloads of gear are brought in from all over the country. including some high-capacity mobile industrial pumps.
We had worked out a strategy with the Emergency Operations Center in High River and the crews to build berms to divide up the community so that we could start to pump it out section by section, so we could at least start to free up some homes so that people would have the chance to go back and assess the damage.
High-volume pumps can suck in 45,000 liters a minute. Smaller pumps can suck 3,400 liters a minute. Combined, these pumps push out 400 million liters a day. But despite all this technology, some houses could not be saved.
There were a lot of very unhappy people. They felt devastated and they wanted to go home, but many of them, there was no home to go back to. And that was probably the most emotionally challenging time, not just for me, but for the entire team, for police officers, because we knew we were in it for a long time.
Weeks would pass before the financial costs of the Alberta floods would be known. But it would take more than time to heal the scars of those who lost more than they could bear. Two weeks after the worst flood in Alberta's history, some residents are allowed to return home. And John Reimer and his family are among the first to return to High River.
Everything is caked in layers and layers of mud. The railroad running beside the road, it had been pushed over by the force of the water and was now a fence. We head up the stairs to our house, open the door. First thing we notice is the stench. It smells like sewage and dirt and rotting meat. We had 2 fridges, one downstairs, one upstairs, and our freezer. We have to empty them out. We get to work right away. We're hauling things out. We rip out the carpet as soon as we can. And so we start tearing down. The ceiling was completely waterlogged because it had all evaporated.
The government of Alberta declared the flood of 2013 to be the worst in the history of the province.
And a lot of these people were not covered by insurance. So that perhaps was the most difficult part of the recovery, is just seeing the people who truly did suffer and knowing that it was going to be a very long time before they were able to come out of it. And I'm not sure everybody's come out of it all these years later.
It became known as the Flood of Floods. Over 100,000 people were forced from their homes. From the city of Calgary to the suburbs and the small towns across the southern reaches of the province, the floodwaters upended, damaged, or destroyed almost everything they touched. Claude Ferdin's house in the town of Exshaw was demolished. The Ferdins decided to look for a bargain among the homes the government had just bought and marked for demolition in the floodplains of High River.
There was an auction, and the opening bid was around $100 or $200 per house. So I talked with my wife, and we started to look at the idea of moving the whole house.
With a low purchase price, the Ferdins could afford to move the house to a flood-safe neighborhood and also pay for the renovations.
If we continue to build homes in floodways, if we continue to build berms that just accelerate the water downstream and cause more disaster somewhere else, all we're doing is feeding the beast. And if we feed the beast, it's just going to get bigger and the disasters will get worse.
The Ferdins moved their house 150 kilometers to high grounds in the town of Exshaw, a place they now call home.
It feels really good to have come this far, and to bring a house like this all the way from High River was something that I think sounded crazy to start with and feels crazier now that it's done. But we're really proud of where we've come and the result of what we've finished.
Calgary Stampede Park was almost completely submerged by the floodwaters. With less than 2 weeks to go before opening day of the 101st Stampede, organizers orchestrated a massive recovery effort, and the rodeo, exhibition, and festival opened on time. Proof to all that Cowtown had come roaring back.
They call this a 1 in 100 year flood because a flood like this theoretically happens once every 100 years, a generational event. Chances are, people who went through the flood are never going to see something like that in their lives. But there are no guarantees Those are just odds. And odds can be beaten. And this is the kind of odds you don't want to beat.
This is like no storm in the record books.
Oh my God. Oh, we got a whiteout going on. It's like being inside of a car wash. Blasting curtains of rain, so much energy all around you.
Winds are gusting to hurricane force now.
This entire city is in the dark, and there's just this massive multi-structure fire, and no one's there to fight it.
We're gonna attempt to save these people.
I just kept urging people, please stay off the roadways.
Oh, come on, sweetie.
Oh my goodness.
As temperatures rise all around the globe, natural disasters are becoming more violent and more frequent. Extreme weather survivors have captured the intensity and the magnitude of these events. These are the first-hand accounts of a planet going rogue. In the past 2 decades, hurricanes along the North American coast have grown more powerful and destructive. Hurricane Katrina breaches the levees of New Orleans, the city's last line of defense. Hurricane Harvey slams Texas and shuts down 1/5 of the U.S.'s fuel output. And in October 2016, Hurricane Matthew wreaks havoc across the continent, beginning in Jamaica, Cuba, the Bahamas, and Haiti. Then charging all the way up the U.S. coast to Canada,
Holy mackerel!
killing hundreds and displacing millions. By October 6th, Matthew has already decimated parts of the Caribbean and is bearing down on the Florida coast. Meteorologist Brian Norcross is quick to recognize the danger that lies ahead.
So Matthew's moving through the Caribbean, and the storm exploded in strength. And then as it came north, we were very fearful that this giant hurricane was going to come slamming into the coast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tony. They just updated the storm, and it looks like it has gained strength.
Tony Kazaza lives on one of Florida's barrier islands. Like everyone on the coast, he's scrambling to get to safety.
It's a lot. There's a lot to think of. You've got a family, the kids. Make sure you have everything, that you need. Where are you going? Are you going to a hotel? Most hotels were sold out within a 6-hour drive.
With nowhere left to go, a friend who lives inland offers Tony a place to stay.
And as I loaded up my truck, reality struck, and it's like, I may not come back to this home.
I have some friends who are staying here on beachside, and I wish they weren't. I've been through earthquakes, I've been through tornadoes, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared.
Most Floridians know all too well the devastating power of a hurricane. The last major hurricane to slam into the coast was Andrew in 1992. It was one of the most destructive hurricanes in the history of the United States. Just like Andrew, Hurricane Matthew starts as a tropical storm system off the coast of Africa. But as it heads west, it grows into a powerful cyclone that swirls around a low-pressure center, or eye. When Matthew reaches the Caribbean and southern U.S. coast, warm surface waters fuel its growth and turn the hurricane into a deadly killer.
If you're watching and you're in an evacuation area, get out. Don't take a chance. Time is running out. This is clearly going to either have a direct hit or come right along our coast, and we're going to have hurricane-force winds.
Many Floridians respond to the governor's plea. Drinking water, food, fuel, and other basic survival supplies quickly sell out. But many people choose to ignore the mandatory evacuation order.
And I get a call from the president of the network, and he tells me that the reporters that we have stationed up and down the East Coast are saying people here are not taking this seriously. They're not evacuating in large enough numbers, and a lot of them aren't even really preparing in a big way for this storm. And he said, I think maybe we should do a message and really convey our concerns and our thoughts about the potential here for the loss of life. I'm Senior Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross, and I want to talk to my friends in Florida. We are concerned about reports of people deciding to stay in areas under mandatory evacuation orders. This is a mistake. This is not hype. This is not hyperbole. And I am not kidding. I cannot overstate the danger of this storm.
Evacuating motorists create gridlock on the roads heading inland. Public shelters are overflowing, and the residents who remain behind have a violent storm headed right for them. As Matthew begins to strike the coast, Tony Kazaza reaches his friend's place just minutes ahead of the storm.
Here we go. First band arriving.
Yep, it's about to get real.
You see the clouds moving in. You see the bands of rain start to happen. And what's to come and the unknown of that, riding a storm out in a home with boarded up windows, there's no light to the outside. It's just sounds. Oh my God. And I don't know that I'll ever unhear them. They were scary.
120 kilometers north of Tony, hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth is rushing to keep ahead of the storm.
Take a look at the radar. This is the band that's passing over New Smyrna Beach right now. Farther down to the southeast here, you can see the edge of the heavier part of Matthew coming into view.
Mark has an array of meteorological equipment to set up to measure and track the approaching storm.
So I set up the anemometer system to measure wind speed, the barometer to measure the pressure.
The National Hurricane Center depends on real-time observations from storm trackers like Mark to help verify their forecasts.
Matthew is now closing in to either make landfall in Florida or get that core right up to the coast. And there's this big fear that it might reach Category 5. I'm thinking, okay, that's not good. And the clock is running down to 0.
Hurricanes are ranked by the Saffir-Simpson wind scale, which uses a 5-level rating system based on sustained wind speeds. A Category 1 hurricane can result in extensive damage to trees, roads, and homes, and cause power outages. A Category 5 storm flattens structures and landscapes and renders large areas uninhabitable for months. On the night of October 6th, the eye of this punishing Category 4 hurricane is just off the Florida coast and battering the land with gusts of over 180 kilometers an hour. The next morning, an oceanside condo in New Smyrna Beach gives hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth a ringside seat to the gathering storm.
I'm going to turn the camera around and show you my world. Winds are gusting to hurricane force now. Unbelievable.
I wake up because you can just feel the building shuddering. You hear stuff rattling, and I jump out and I go out to see what's going on. And it's like being inside of a car wash. It's just blasting curtains of rain and so much energy all around you.
The way the wind just blasts that rain down, amazing. The transfer of energy to the surface over there. Look at that, those downbursts, wow.
And the eye on the eye wall is a few miles just offshore, but it's closing in.
Oh my goodness.
With South Florida in its wake, Matthew charges north. Next stop, Daytona Beach.
Never gone live, but I just woke up and here we go.
Jimmy Anthony ignored an evacuation order, thinking he could take shelter from the storm in his home. But now, he isn't so sure.
Jesus. My poor doc. Holy smokes. I checked the news, and that's when they said basically it was still beelining for us. The news portrayed it as like the worst storm since Andrew. And that's when I kind of was worried about the choice that I had made to stay. And I was actually terrified. Oh my God. Still got a few more hours, still high tide even. These waves are not good. Woo-wee. The impact of the storm was happening at the same time as the high tide. So it was just like, would you say the perfect storm? Or the horrible scenario? That's what it was. Oh, what the heck's going on? Oh, we got a whiteout going on. Oh my God. Oh my God.
In the past few years, hurricanes have become more powerful and more destructive. The year 2016 was no exception, when Hurricane Matthew's brutal assault on the Caribbean left hundreds dead and damaged thousands of homes. Now, Matthew is rampaging up the Florida coast and gaining strength by the minute.
Oh,
in Daytona Beach, punishing winds and a rising tide threatened to demolish Jimmy Anthony's home.
I think right now my main concern is this seawall. If it goes, I don't know what the hell would happen. I don't know if the house would start to go or what. The seawall was being collapsed, like the dirt was being eroded from behind it, because actually the waves were going over it and then washing it. Oh man, something just popped. I think one of the pylons. Oh, the seawall's going, it's gone. Oh, the seawall is gone.
Without a seawall to shield his valuable beachfront property from the storm, Jimmy decides to say goodbye. He calls his cousin Jed, who's riding out the storm a few miles away.
I got in communication with my cousin, and I was like, I think the house is gonna go. Maybe just come pick me up. I'm going to be getting out of here. 30 feet of yard and seawall are gone in about 30 minutes. Oh, if it falls. Yeah.
But just as the waves begin to swallow up his backyard, Jimmy gets a lucky break.
I had a shuffleboard court, and it ended up falling and creating another seawall. Shuffleboard might save us. And that's when we were like, all right, are we gonna go or are we gonna try to do this? And we were like, let's try to do it.
Jimmy and his cousin get down to work, building a makeshift seawall.
Whatever we could pick up, we threw in there. My neighbor had some rocks and some stuff over here. I literally grabbed the carpets from underneath my dining room table and my living room, ripped those out and threw those out there. I just had done my dock, so I had some old boards that we threw in there. The grill, barbecue grill, a tile cutting saw, I threw that in there. We threw everything at it but the kitchen sink. We didn't do that. Well, this is what we've done. We threw everything at this son of a... We don't back down. We get it done.
Jimmy and his cousin aren't giving up, but their troubles are far from over.
Well, really need this thing to stop.
The gale force winds and high tides are only a preamble to the menacing main event, the storm surge.
Oh my goodness.
Here's what storm surge means in very real terms. It means you can't survive, because even if the water is only 3 feet high, look at it come up on the scale here and look what happens to cars. Cars get washed away. Everything that's at ground level finally gets moved out because it's not just the height of the water, it's the push of the storm behind that water. Matthew is approaching the Central Florida coastline, and this is where the maximum storm surge is going to occur. And people in Central Florida don't have any experience really with storms coming in that way. I know that because I grew up there. Now, imagine it goes to 6 feet. Now we're over my head. It's completely unsurvivable because this water is moving. It's not just lifting. It's not like you could float in it. You'd be swept away, full of debris, full of all kinds of chemicals. The ocean is incredibly powerful. If you go a little over 3 feet this way, about a meter this way, and a meter that way, and a meter that weighs almost a ton. And if you think of the ocean full of tons of water plowing onto the shore, the damage can be spectacular, and it's impossible to survive that.
While the Central Florida coast contends with destructive storm surge, in the skies above, a completely different kind of battle is underway. The hurricane hunters are collecting data for the National Hurricane Center to help with forecasting the path and intensity of Matthew. The flight director is 37-year veteran Jack Parrish.
These floods are really intense. You fly a long time through light to moderate chop. And then you fly through rain bands and it gets a little choppier, but you never mistake an eye wall. Almost all of the energy of the storm, copious rainfall where you think you're flying a submarine rather than flying an airplane, and you're seeing the airplane jumping up and down, the people jumping up and down. The reward is, once you get through that area of greatest hazard, then you're going to come into that pristine eye. You look left and you look right and you see the stadium of clouds around you. The only trepidation is the only way back out is the same way you got in.
In the course of a single flight, the hurricane hunter's aircraft can punch through the eye wall a staggering 10 times.
The P-3 aircraft is bristling with radars. What we're trying to do is to map out the areas of the strongest winds. Is this storm getting stronger? Is the pressure dropping? Are the winds getting stronger? We're transmitting data in real time. We have bursts of data that go out every 10 minutes.
One of the hurricane hunter's favorite weapons for collecting data is the drop sonde.
A drop sonde is a 1-pound fiberboard cylinder, and it drops down out of the airplane. It uses a parachute to slow its fall and orient itself, so it'll do good weather observations on the way down. And it transmits data back to the airplane 4 times per second.
Jack's team sends their data to the National Hurricane Center for analysis.
The data coming out of the aircraft, we read their analysis to understand how it's going to affect the land and how it's going to affect people. Let's look at the late advisory just in from the National Hurricane Center. Category 2 hurricane now, 110-mile-an-hour winds.
Although Matthew has been downgraded to a Category 2 storm, winds and storm surge are still keeping communities in its path on high alert.
Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Take a look now at the latest track forecast for Hurricane Matthew. What I'm going to do is start pulling up shop and heading up the coast along I-95 and try to get into South Carolina. I have a camera in Charleston that runs for 66 hours. I set it up, I don't remember when I set it up, the other day. It's going to run out tomorrow.
My camera system in Charleston at the harbor is still running, but I wasn't sure if it was going to continue to run through Saturday morning when Matthew now looks like it's going to make a pretty close approach, if not landfall right in Charleston or nearby.
But I want to get up here to the Charleston harbor and replace the batteries so that we can monitor what happens as Matthew moves up. So that's what's happening. I am in New Smyrna Beach, getting ready to depart, and the highest wind that I recorded on the weather station over on the Causeway Bridge was 93 miles per hour.
There's nothing safe about the trip he's about to embark on. To reach his camera, Mark will have to travel through hurricane-force winds and blinding rain.
It's very dangerous because you're getting hit by wind from the side and torrential rain so hard in some cases that you just can't see even 100 feet in front of your vehicle. And you got to just grip that wheel and focus. that if you make one mistake, it's all over.
Mark arrives in Charleston just in time to install fresh batteries in his camera.
I arrived around 11 o'clock Friday night, changed the batteries out. There was nobody downtown in Charleston. That's so surreal to see it like that. But it allows me to get in, do my work, and then get out of there.
A few hours after Mark changes the batteries, the outer edges of Matthew pass over South Carolina.
Even though I'm capturing meteorological data with the anemometer that measures the wind speed and the gust, etc., I also want to be able to capture visual data.
The visuals speak for themselves. Within a few hours, the Charleston Harbor is submerged under 6 feet of water. An extraordinary event that gives Mark and scientists critical insights into future hurricanes. Matthew is now marauding across the Carolinas. Over 160 kilometers inland, Officer Asia Cannon uses a military surplus vehicle to patrol the city center.
Please stay indoors. Do not try to go down these roads. These roads are flooded. Your car will stall out and you will be stuck.
There was no sign of that rain stopping at any point. No one realized the dangers that actually lied ahead.
Hey, there's somebody over there to the right.
Hurricane forecasting has significantly improved in the past decades. Yet despite all the warnings, every hurricane season, the weather's fury causes death and millions of dollars of damages.
Oh my goodness.
In 2016, after tearing up the Florida coast, Hurricane Matthew advances into the Carolinas.
This flooding is dangerous. Please stay indoors.
In Fayetteville, police officer Asia Cannon patrols the flooded streets, searching for people in distress.
All right, guys, right now we are live. We are on Robinson Street.
There was no sign of that rain stopping at any point. So I kept urging people like, hey, please stay off the roadways.
As you can see right now, there's a car stuck in the roadway. We're in police rescue 2. We're gonna attempt to save these people. We're not sure if they're still in their vehicles. You see anybody?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
Okay, guys, that car is clear. But as you can see, these roads are flooding. Robinson Street, guys. We're on Robinson Street. Hey, there's somebody over there to the right.
I remember as we get to the Robinson and MLK intersection, and we see this car at this off-ramp, and I see a lady. It's like she's standing on her car seat, trying to stay above the water.
If you guys can see, this is why we encourage people. Please stay indoors. Do not try to go down these roads. These roads are flooded. Your car will stall out and you will be stuck. All right, guys. Police Rescue 2, we're going to try to back up to this lady here and we're going to try to get her in here. Hold on, ma'am. He's going to come out.
And that's when you realize, like, hey, she's really in danger because she's just a couple moments from having nothing else to really sit on. And as we're pulling her from the vehicle, this child just came out of nowhere.
Oh, come on, sweetie. Oh, it's okay. Come here.
And, you know, my heart sunk. We're talking about a 1 or 2 year old child that's in this situation, and Lieutenant Joyce handed him to me, and he's cold, he's screaming, he's crying.
Look, guys, I just made a new friend. Hey, cutie. Her car got stalled out. She got caught up in the flood. She has her child with her.
They were in a very dangerous situation. The car was almost to a point where it could have possibly floated away.
Again, guys, we encourage everybody, please stay home and stay safe.
Matthew is now a Category 1 hurricane, but its destructive power remains undiminished. More than half of the 46 American fatalities occurred during this phase of the storm, many of them motorists trapped in washed-out vehicles.
Matthew was bringing this tremendous amount of moisture with it. Category 1 winds are still quite strong and can do damage right at the coast. But the big threat was that moisture, and that moisture was going to dramatically impact North Carolina.
Flash floods submerged roads and wrecked thousands of homes. On October 8th alone, rescue workers on land and by air assist over 1,000 North Carolinians. And back on the coastline, the tale of the 400-kilometer-wide storm whiplashes Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. News reporter Summer Dash is at the center of the action.
I'm going to check in now with Summer Dash. She has been roving, if you will, throughout the area, giving us a tour. And where are you right now, Summer, and what are you seeing?
Well, you guys, we weren't planning on being in the car for this live shot, but we had to jump in the car really fast. That's what we just got out of. We were perfectly fine 10 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden that stuff comes up really, really quickly on you.
After the storm surge nearly sweeps Summer away, she and her cameraman retreat to their hotel on the other side of town.
We're driving back to the hotel, and we can't get to the actual hotel parking lot because Ocean Boulevard was flooded.
Reporter Dash and her cameraman abandon their vehicle and continue on foot.
We have just barely made it back to our hotel here. Take a look at what it looks like down here. So this is Ocean Boulevard and Main Street. It is entirely flooded.
There's no one in this hotel except for us in our little oceanfront room, and the power's out, the elevators aren't working. So I get this text message from one of my police officer sources in North Myrtle Beach, and he says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I don't think you should leave your hotel because if something happens to you, I can't come save you." Within seconds after I get that text message, my boss calls me and says, "Hey, there's a really bad fire, we need you to go."
By the time she gets to the scene, the fire is burning out of control.
Summer Dash here, we're in North Myrtle Beach. This is the Cherry Grove area, a fire right now here. We're gonna try to get you a little bit closer here. Give me 1 second.
This entire city is in the dark, and there's just this giant light from fire.
We were talking to some firefighters earlier today. Police, they said, you know, with the wind so high, they were not able to come out here and fight this fire.
This is a massive multi-structure fire, and no one's there to fight it.
The winds were just too strong. We have a policy, anything over 45 miles an hour, nothing goes out. And the winds were probably sustained 50, 60 with gusts higher.
The apparatus from the engines to the trucks, they just act like a sail when you're driving down the road, and they can blow them over.
And then with the high tide, with the flooding, trying to get an engine down in there was going to be next to nil.
It's a little tough knowing you can't respond to a fire when that's your job.
At around 7 p.m., the National Guard offers to transport firefighters in an armored vehicle, stable enough to navigate through wind and water.
I loaded up with the military, and 2 other firefighters went with us.
We hooked in straight to the hydrants. We got 2 lines in place.
They have these little hoses, and I can see they're not shooting the hoses on the flames. They're shooting them on the condos next door that aren't on fire yet.
I think, you know what, this third one just caught fire. This is now 3 buildings, plus these large villas over here. There goes the front of that building.
We didn't know how much longer we could hold it. And probably 45 minutes into that operation, the winds finally dropped down to that 45. And so yeah, they were able to start getting engines in there.
All right, here is the first fire truck we are seeing of the night has just arrived. Looks like they've got the really strong hoses out now.
We had the engines and the towers so we could up the pressure, so we were able to actually kind of overcome the wind.
In just a few hours, the fire destroys 3 entire housing units. And there's not much Summer can do but record it.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Really a sad situation, you guys.
My mindset when I'm doing this video is just, I know that this is a hard thing for many people to be watching. I know that. And I know that a fire means someone lost their home. And I know that this fire may mean someone died. I have no idea if anyone is in that rubble at this point.
Back inland the following morning, rising floodwaters have brought chaos and destruction to Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Hurricane Matthew, they only told us it's gonna be about 10 inches of rain. Obviously we can see that is a lie.
Cuevas Hart is a war veteran, but he's never seen anything quite like this.
I was in total shock. I didn't believe that the water could even get this high. It was pretty devastating. You know, it came through here, pretty much no warning. I've never seen anything like Matthew, ever. There were roads washed out, there were trees down, there were cars flooded out, and I stumbled across this neighborhood that was completely submerged underwater.
When Hart goes live, a man in Texas immediately replies. His brother is trapped in one of the houses. The 2016 hurricane season was not the busiest or the costliest, but it was one of the deadliest. After devastating the Atlantic coast, Hurricane Matthew buries inland North Carolina under a deluge of floodwaters.
Look at that, another road closed. Dang!
Fayetteville resident Cuevas Hart hopes he can save a man's life by using his drone.
I take my drone back and just get a big aerial shot, and I can see a boat off in the distance.
Using his drone as a guide, Hart leads the rescue team to the house where the man is trapped with his dog.
I didn't feel like a hero because I came to find out that this guy was a veteran. I'm a veteran. He served, I served. I feel like it was my duty to help my brother at that point in time.
As Hurricane Matthew makes its way up north along the Atlantic coast, the winds subside and the skies turn bright and blue. And yet panic begins to spread as people are forced to flee their flooded homes in search of food and shelter.
It is getting really serious now here in Kinston in Lenoir County.
It's a script hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth has seen play out before.
Now you have this next part of the disaster, sort of the last chapter, whatever you want to call it, of the river flood. And that literally took days to unfold.
Back flooding into places, traffic jammed up everywhere, people panicking, trying to get out.
We knew as it was happening that there was a massive flood threat, but we didn't know the scope of it and exactly who was going to be affected. And I don't think we had an appreciation for how bad it was going to be.
Houses flood, businesses flood. Schools are having to close down. Children are now delayed for school. It's just this cascading effect.
When you get that combination of heavy rain at a higher elevation and over an extended area, so all of the tributaries coming down to the river are all full when they reach the big rivers that go to the coast, you end up with a massive flood, and that's what we had in Matthew.
Matthew is now a tropical storm, but instead of fizzling away offshore, it merges with a low pressure system, builds up in size and power, and heads north. Destination, the Canadian Atlantic provinces.
Tonight, furious flooding. The remnants of Hurricane Matthew have pummeled Cape Breton Island with hurricane-style rainfall and flooding and tropical storm force winds.
So you had all this tropical energy sort of pulled out of Matthew itself, the tropical cyclone, absorbed into an entirely different storm system that went up and dropped 6 to 10 inches of rain in some portions of southeast Canada.
The streets and the roads and the basements, many of them are still waist deep in water tonight. The schools were closed today. Many thousands of people in Cape Breton and elsewhere will spend at least another night without power.
Wow, I've never seen it like this.
Hurricanes are not, alien to the Canadian Maritimes, but it's not a regular occurrence. And so from the Caribbean islands all the way up into the Canadian Maritimes, Matthew left its mark.
Holy mackerel.
After a violent rampage lasting more than a week, Matthew finally breaks apart in the North Atlantic. In its wake, millions are left to recover. But the worst off are the most vulnerable.
We have been getting updates from everywhere, and by now, everyone can tell it's not good.
Wanda Tima is a member of a large delegation of Haitian Americans preparing a relief mission for survivors on the southern tip of the Caribbean island.
This is stuff that people have been dropping off from all over the country. We have clothes, we have canned goods, we have maxi pads and alcohol and Band-Aids, but we need stuff like Tylenol, we need peroxide.
I was definitely surprised at how fast the community came together and the urgency that everyone had. Anytime you hear anything is headed towards Haiti, you're nervous.
8 days after Matthew slammed into Haiti, Wanda and her delegation of volunteers leave on their mission.
We are officially in Haiti. We just landed. We have all of our crew here. We're packing bags.
So we're outside the airport, all the bags are coming off, and we're loading the trucks.
We have our HANA nurses here with us.
As Wanda and her fellow volunteers leave the airport, the harsh reality of the situation hits home.
Sitting on the bus, you're already seeing the devastation. Flooding, roofs are gone, houses are gone. At this point, we know exactly how bad it was, and it was bad.
For more than a week, Hurricane Matthew delivers chaos and destruction to the eastern seaboard of the United States and up north into Canada.
Wow, wow, wow. Unbelievable.
But it's the Caribbean where Matthew hits the hardest.
Matthew was an extreme hurricane in the Caribbean. We've never seen a Category 5 that far south, so close to the South American coast, and it strengthened at this unbelievable rate from 80 miles an hour to 165 miles per hour in the blink of an eye.
With an overall death count of 603, Hurricane Matthew killed more than 550 in Haiti alone.
It was an incredible tragedy in Haiti and the extreme eastern part of Cuba. A tragedy beyond what they've never seen in those parts of those countries.
We are officially here after 6 hours of driving.
Wanda Tima and a delegation of Haitian American volunteers were among the first to offer assistance.
As soon as the buses would pull in, you just see everybody go, ah! They'd be waving, and people were so happy to see us. And it was like happiness to, I need to be seen right now. I'm hungry, I need this, I need that.
They sit here and basically wait in line. And they're seeing them one by one or as a family. And once they're seen by the nurses, we have all the stuff here for them.
So each of the locations we went to had between 800 to 1,200 people. You're thinking, wait, how the nurses gonna do this?
Yeah, okay. It's okay, we got you.
And I realized right away, Haiti's not ready for any kind of disaster.
Back in the U.S.
Here is a view. This is actually coming inside the home.
You don't really know where to start.
A stunning home video makes national news.
Chairs are floating around. I never thought we'd get this much.
The reporter's up there kind of narrating my story. And that's when you realize, this is real. This is really happening. It's not going away. And you just kind of feel lost. What's going to happen next?
Jody's house in Fair Bluff overlooks the Lumber River, which has completely breached its banks.
When I open the front door, I look out, and the sunrise is pretty, the birds are singing, the sun's out, and it's just this nice, steady flow of water running through. The whole town had been taken, by the water. It's kind of a numb feeling, really. It's almost like you don't know what to feel because you've never had to feel in that situation.
There's a nice current going here. Downtown.
I really realized how bad it was. It just looks like a big lake with houses in it, a bridge crossing and a railroad.
I think it humbled a lot of us. You know, it pulled the town together. Everybody, I think, is even, you know, a lot closer now than they were before the flood. I think we all live our lives with the future in mind, our goals and where we're going to be in 10 years and 20 years. And you realize, well, everything I've worked for up until this point is gone.
As the story of Hurricane Matthew recedes into history, the people and communities left in its wake now face an uncertain future.
Obviously, there's a fear that we're going to keep getting these strong hurricanes hitting the coast. And that's a good fear, actually. We have to build better, we have to prepare better, we have to be more resilient. If we're going to live near the water, we have to acknowledge the water is going to come in. So we have to let the water come in and go out and have a way of going about living.
For the survivors of Hurricane Matthew, the fury and power of the storm is an unforgettable and traumatic memory.
Look at this wave. Look at this wave. Oh my God. That's a 5-foot wave and it is blowing.
But to expert meteorologists, Hurricane Matthew and other hurricanes that followed, including Harvey, Irma, and Maria, all contain a dire warning for the future.
I'm hoping that the hurricanes that we've had recently will trigger people and governments to acknowledge the threat that a hurricane can come any year, and it can be a bad hurricane. We just have to acknowledge that and build for it for a good future.
In Fayetteville, Army veteran Cuevas Hart, who used his drone to rescue a man and his dog, is brainstorming on how to turn his hobby into a business.
I seen that drones could be used in a lot of places, especially emergency management. You know, having drones go out, you know, they save time, money, the police, the fire department, you know, the rescue teams. So that's my mission, you know, seeing how we can innovate drones into these first responders, you know, having drone operators on duty that could do what I did professionally.
In North Myrtle Beach, news reporter Summer Dash searches the rubble of the Cherry Grove fire for hope and a story with a happy ending.
People ask me a lot of times, how do you deal with all the sad stuff you cover? And my answer always is because of what happens after. The firefighters, they're not spraying the flames, they're saving this building. Those people meet the firefighters who sprayed that hose. The man who lost his condo, he has 20 years of memories in that home with his family, but people have come together and they're gonna rebuild that place, and that's positive. So as hard as it is to say these things, I know every single time I have to cover something bad, there's going to be a happy story I get to tell in the end.
In Daytona Beach, Florida, Jimmy Anthony's life is finally getting back to normal.
Thankfully, 1 week before Irma came, I was able to get the seawall done. And thank God, because everything would be gone.
Although Jimmy's decision to ride out Hurricane Matthew may have saved his home, the experience is not one he wants to relive.
Family's more important, and I want to be here with them. So what I did, it jeopardized all that. And I won't do that again, you know? Florida living. That's what it's all about right there, you know, in the end.
People who live on the coast are rebuilding. But as every hurricane season now brings new, powerful storms, they could only wonder if living with such destructive hurricanes is the new normal.
It's hard to look at Matthew and Harvey and Irma and Maria and not say things are changing. We can say that on average, the ocean water is warmer. And we've seen that increase the intensity of hurricanes. No matter what we do along the coastlines, the threat is increasing. The number of people are increasing and sea level is rising. Both of those make the hurricane problem ever so much greater.
Well, I'm getting ready to go up to the Outer Banks, Hurricane Maria offshore of the Outer Banks, but it's going to bring some impacts up there. And so we're going to put some of the equipment out.
For hurricane tracker Mark Sudduth, The storms just keep on coming.
Tropical storm force winds, storm surge, flooding, high waves, all important data, even from a hurricane that's going to be almost 150 miles offshore.
But beyond all the measurements and data he collects, Mark remains sharply aware of the greater challenges that face him and everyone who lives in the hurricane zone.
We can't let these disasters fade from headlines and then we say, well, it's gone now, so we really don't have to worry about mitigation or adaptation. It's like, no, you have to look at these and say, we must do something to build stronger, build smarter, and live with these events. And I think to do that, you have to respect them and understand them. And until we do that, though, we're going to fail every time. So we'll see. That's the chapter that's not been written yet.